Okay, call this work session to order, Wednesday, January 16th, 1 p.m. Open it up for visitor comments. No visitor comments? Okay. We have an Employee Length of Service Award. Is Tim here? Okay. So at this time, actually, we're going to want to break in the middle of this and go into executive session. The media is welcome to attend. We're going to head upstairs for a moment because we have our attorney here, and we need legal counsel.
Do we know how long? Is there any estimate of how long for people that are watching? I mean, we're breaking for executive session, but if people are wanting to watch from home.
That was going to be my recommendation,
Okay.
so we have a time certain to
Right.
come back.
I just thought if people are waiting and want to talk to us that are out here or listening for something later on the agenda, I wanted to let them know if it's half an hour or 15 minutes.
It's ORS 192-662E, consult with counsel, potential litigation.
Yep. Yeah.
5 minutes, 25 minutes, 15 minutes.
15?
Okay, so
120 maybe?
yeah. So we are going to break and go into executive session, and we will return at 1:20, 1:25, just to be safe. So, and I know Councilor Morton is present. He is upstairs. So today is January 16th, 2019, and the time is 1:04 p.m. We are now in executive session under ORS 192-6602E, no. Are we going to do real property transaction? No. Okay. Consult with counsel, potential litigation. Representative of the news medias are directed to not report on any of the material in executive session except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. Any person in attendance, including the news media, who has a recording device is directed to turn it off. Members of the council present are Councilor Locke, Councilor Carlson, Councilor Topaz, Councilor Morton, and myself, Mayor Scholl. And like I said, we'll take a break and be back down here at about 1:25. We're just trying to be fiscally responsible. We have an attorney sitting here, so.
Well played.
Okay. You did?
Yeah. So this whole side of my face
A little numb. Well, you were talking with a lisp.
Where's that pizza crust?
Are you and Eric gonna finish up, or are you guys just gonna?
Last time he came, with this, we had a snowstorm, and I only got 20 minutes with it.
How much did you get this time?
50.
Yeah.
45, 50.
Okay. Good.
When is your thing? How'd you like the questions? Were they good?
Well, yeah, kind of.
Have you done
I had a
yours?
good
Yeah.
time.
My schedule's a little less forgiving, so I'm like when it's 8 to 4 thing. So I'm good.
We'll get there.
Mr. Mayor, Tim's not going to make it for his award. So
Okay.
Anyway, thank you.
Could he make it tonight?
Do you talk?
Okay. Welcome back. We took a recess from our executive session, and now we are back into our work session meeting. So, I have an employee length of service award for Tim Elias. Did I say that right? Ilias. He has worked 10 years for the city of St. Helens, and he is our plumber. So, thank you, Tim. I'm sorry he couldn't be here today. Okay, we're going to get a communications second quarter report. Crystal.
So this report covers October through December of 2018, and the complete report is included in your packet, but I just want to highlight a few things in there. Number one being the workload indicators. If you can tell from, I have a comparison of our fiscal year to date, which is the last 6 months of work, versus the prior 4 fiscal years, and I think it's on the previous page, Kathy. One more, there. That bottom graph there. If you take a look at it, you will notice that pretty much we are on track to almost double the number of press releases that we send out this year compared to any other year. We'll probably at least be at 33 to 40% more social media output than prior years. E-newsletter will probably be about the same. We'll probably be worked somewhere out to 14 or 15, which is concurrent with the highest that we've put out before. One thing that I do want to point out that we did less of this year so far is the radio spots, which is due to Kohai being down for their antenna upgrades, which apparently is now mostly fixed. They're still having some volume issues, but we do have a city talk scheduled for later this month.
Speaking of volume issues, just because it's on my mind, this has nothing to do with your report, but we have a hard time from our listeners. They can always hear me, but they're having a hard time hearing the rest of the council. Yeah. Yeah. So if you really want the public that do watch, because there are a number of people that do watch, to hear you, please speak into the microphone so they can hear you clearly, okay? As I'm told they can hear me, I know I'm pretty loud. Can you speak into your mic, Kathy? So, sorry, Crystal. Carry on, Crystal. I'm sorry.
That's fine. I will spare you going into in-depth on the social media statistics, but one thing I do want to highlight is, I think on page 5, Kathy, I haven't done this in a while, but I put our comparisons with other agencies for our main City of St. Helens page. which I think it's been a couple years probably since I included that in the report. But you will note that we are pretty much comparable with most of the major Portland Metro agencies that have Facebook pages, as far as we actually have a very high following for our city, size-wise, compared to a lot of other agencies in the Portland Metro area. And we engage at a pretty high rate compared to their post versus engagement. One thing that the council directed at the last report that I did was to look at more paid advertising on social media. So I've included in your report some statistics from 2 of the posts that I boosted over the last quarter, which included our Christmas tree lighting, Christmas ships, fireworks advertisements. So I paid $150 to do some targeted advertising to sort of the greater Portland Metro, Southwest Washington area. So you can see for $150, it resulted in about 11,000 people seeing and engaging with it. And then
So is that about double of what we normally that engage?
it really depends
Yeah.
on the post.
Okay. Like Halloween Town could be, without even that, could be big.
Halloween Town, we could see a post that has 400,000 people that engage in one post, but we can do a post for Spirit of Halloween Town as well that might see only 2,000 people engage in it.
We had way more people engaged in 4th of July this year from a wider swath of folks than we have in the past. Just following all the commentary and all of the stuff on the after photos, that our reach of people coming here to enjoy our 4th of July was greater, I think, probably as a result of this effort.
And yeah, I think that's true of the holiday
The
event that we
Christmas
had as well. Yeah. And then on the next page, I included some statistics for, we shared a Port of Columbia County expansion project that they had completed. So I put $25 towards boosting that for just kind of a yay economic development in St. Helens post, which reached about 2,500 people, which is comparable to the 150 we put at the other post dollar-wise. So you can review those, and if anybody has questions afterwards, they can come and ask me. We can look at, I don't know what you want to look at as far as more targeted boosting of posts in the future, but they tend to work well. Just depending on what you want to see, what kind of messages you want to see go out.
Yeah.
Kathy, on the next slide. We're also getting ready to launch a printed stuffer that will go in the utility bills. Probably start out as a bi-monthly stuffer. So this is a template of what that will look like. I need to talk to the printer again, which I have talked to in the past, to get set up with him, but hopefully it will be out in March, in the March utility bills, and it will look something like this here.
Looks good.
And then this is just some activity highlights from the last quarter. Obviously, we had Spirit of Halloween Town, which takes up a large part of my time in October. We, again, had radio calling, asking for interviews. We had people from northern Washington to Portland Metro come out that were TV stations to do interviews and cover stories here. We had K2 come out several times, I believe, to cover things. And then I attended the first responders emergency management meetings because we did have the pumpkin lighting with a celebrity day was our big day where we had all the first responders on board coordinating efforts in case there was any issues.
How much, I know that we covered it, how much was around the parade itself? Because that was a big day. I mean, you recall down here.
I think there were more people here on the parade day than there were on the celebrity day.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so what was the question, though?
Who else maybe covered that?
I know K2 was out here. I believe the Oregonian was out here as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was us literally trying to get through back there, by the way, on that photo.
Yes, it was.
Barely enough room. I was driving the big truck, and I had to be very, very careful. The kids were We
It
need
was
to-
very crowded down
We
here.
need to figure a cone system for this downtown area.
The police had a lot of different activities over the last quarter as well. They started their first Thursday community meetings, which happen the first Thursday of every month. There's a different police topic or community concern topic that happens at each of those meetings. We also did the police trunk or treat event, this is the second year that they've done that. Very well attended. And I noticed a spike in increased interest from Portland Metro in some of the press releases that we've been sending out in cases. We've had quite a few inquiries from the Portland Metro TV stations about those when we send those out. In addition, we had, do you remember, was it K2 that came out to one of our first Thursdays for the crisis intervention team presentation? We covered a lot of the rec program events over the summer and fall to help promote that and get attendance up. We will have a new guide coming out soon, according to Shauna, I believe. So that will be on the future as well for things that we're covering. I'm happy to announce that we've taken off one of our pages that we manage, which is the St. Helens CERT Facebook page, which used to be managed through the police department. I worked with CERT to turn that over to them so that they can now self-manage that. They're their own nonprofit. So we've turned that over to them so we don't have to manage that anymore. The library had a lot of great events that happened this fall, and in addition, they launched their STEM program grant expansion that we covered, and they will have events coming up now that they're in the actual event process of that. They will have a bunch of events that are coming up related to that that we'll cover in the future as well. We covered the Veterans Memorial Expansion Project, which they're still working on, but had it completed enough in time for Veterans Day, which I know a number of you attended that event on Veterans Day. So I finally got there, I think, for the first time this year to get some good pictures so we can help advertise that in the future as well. And then I worked to cover some more economic development, urban renewal news and push that out on different platforms. So we talked about like Carl Kaufman's container projects. We have the housing needs analysis that we're going through right now, and just some more development news was pushed out about subdivisions that are approved through planning, but not in the building phase yet. And as always at this time of the year, we had Donut Day, where I talked about the fireworks, tree lighting, Christmas ships that I was there for. So in addition to a lot of these projects that I already covered in the activities highlight that we'll be working on in the future over the next 3 months, I also do want to highlight that we have several events coming up in February that I would invite the council to attend. On the 7th, February 7th is the next First Thursday program for the police department at the library. It'll be covering our Narcan program, which is an opioid overdose program that we have. That's at 7 p.m. On February 11th, we haven't announced this yet, but we will be having a Cocoa with a Cop event at Burgerville. That will be from 4 to 6 p.m., and we're combining it with Burgerville because they'll also be doing a Valentine's Day cookie decorating event there, so we're partnering with them to do a combined event.
Cookies and cocoa.
Yes. And then on February 23rd, the library is launching another one of their Maker Fests, which falls under their STEM program for science, technology, engineering, and math programs for youth. So it will be a day of hands-on science and making events for kids. So from 10 to 1 on February 23rd.
Good job.
I had a question about upcoming stuff for the spring.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know how much we did to promote that If I Were Mayor campaign last year. And if you partner with us in doing that, making sure the school gets information.
Lisa partners with the schools on that.
Lisa
So
does it?
yeah, she sends that info to the schools, which
I've
they
been seeing your ads on social media, so I thought, oh, cool. So
yeah.
you're
So
here to do the report, so I just thought of that.
yes. Lisa has Stacy Mendoza that she coordinates with, who goes to the school board and requests. Every year, I believe, we put a stuffer in every student's backpack that goes home with them to advertise that event. And then, yes, we always do the press release and social media promotion. So that's definitely something that we could pay to help advertise this year.
Yeah, and their deadline was later, but they moved it back to May for kids to do it while they're in school.
Right. Lisa brought it up to youth council this week, so that's why it was in the front of my mind talking about it's almost time to roll that out. So
Yep,
that's all.
definitely let that youth council know. It's $100 bill, and then
But
Yeah.
there's just so many junior high and high schoolers that could be a real asset to their, their application for college, different things. It's more unique opportunity for some of the older kids that they don't always get. So
It is, and we rarely have high school students that participate in it.
Right.
So they have very good chances of winning if they
yeah, I always look at it
participate.
as like 100 of the kids are doing all the same thing, and so if you did this and win this contest, it could make you different.
Yeah.
Stick out.
we had a second place winner, Madeline Clark, for grade school, and she won a Kindle, the $100 plus a Kindle at the state level. She got second at state. So
Wow.
yeah,
There you go. Thank you.
Any other questions?
That's it.
okay. Thanks, Crystal. Okay, discussion regarding utility rates, Matt.
So a couple things I want to just throw out there before you start seeing numbers and charts and graphs and all the information. A couple assumptions that are in these forecasts are personnel services at 7% increases every year. That is based on the last probably 2 or 3 years of what we have seen between retirement, COLA increases, and health insurance. And then also materials and services is budgeted at 3%. That's usually standard for what I've used in the last few years of forecasting budgets, just a general 3%. And then you're going to see forecasts for the water, sewer, and storm fund with potential increases at 5%, 3.5%, 2%, and 0%. Okay? So first we're going to look at the water fund. So on every graph you're going to see 4 years of actual history, the estimated year end for this current year, what I roughly anticipate the budget to be next year, and then the forecasting years into the future. On every graph, you'll see an orange line. That is a 90-day reserve policy that was approved by council when I began here. We updated our financial policies when I first came here, instituting that 90-day policy. In many other cities, it can range anywhere from 60 to 30, and then some who don't have a lot of money, they don't have a reserve policy at all. So we've kind of started at the top just because that's the best practice. And the council and staff can have discussions if we decide to move that in the future. So this is assuming a 5% steady increase for the foregoing future in the next 4 or 5 years in the water fund. As you can see, the ending fund balance steadily increases, which is always a good thing. So at the end of 2025, we would roughly have about $6.6 million as an ending fund balance. If we drop that increase down to 3.5%, you can see that ending fund balance drops down to $5.4 million, but still increasing. Doing a 2% steady increase, you can start to see it level off. And that's basically catching up with the 7% in personnel services and the 3% in materials and services that is increasing. So with a 2%, I'm forecasting about $4.2 million by the end of 2025. If you did nothing and did a 0% increase, you can start to see the ending fund balance start to go down. And we drop down to about a $2.7 million ending fund balance. Now, as you think about into the future, this is our current 5-year capital improvement projects for the water fund. So meter replacements and main replacements that are listed first, those are every year items that we budget for just basic replacement of the meter readers as well as your system infrastructure. And then we have a few specific projects listed that are there. And if you do have any questions about specific projects, I'm happy to answer what I can financially, but Sue and Neil are probably the best to answer about current projects that are going on and where we are in those stages. So I know they're happy to answer any questions that you may have specifically about projects. So this is the 5-year CIP for the water fund. This list is the future CIP projects. Now this comes from the list that was done in the master plan that was completed back in 2013. There's a combination of projects that range from projects that can be funded with the water fund. There are projects that can be funded from water SDC charges, and there are also projects that can be funded by both. So that summary is on the bottom there, what you see: water fund, water SDC, and then water and SDC. So in total, from the master plan, by 2050, all of those projects should be done in theory. So all of those projects together come to about $17.5 million that we would need in the future by 2050. Any questions so far? So now we're going to look at the sewer fund. So the 4 years of actual, the estimated year end, and the forecasting. You can already start to see that the ending fund balance slowly goes down. Now this is assuming a 5% increase every single year. So at the end of 2025, we have an ending fund balance of roughly about $1.5 million. Dropping that down to a 3.5% increase drops the ending fund balance down to $863,000. Dropping it down to a 2% at the end of 2025 creates a negative result. Doing nothing creates an even bigger red result. Now, it's very important to understand that if you were to choose to do nothing, we're not going to get to that point. We will make changes and adjustments if we ever get to that point. So don't think that...
Can you go back to the 2% one more time?
So that's 2%.
So good till 2022.
2022.
Yep. Maybe
But
2023.
if you continue to do those 2% increases, I would say as we start to do those, we need to have some more discussions about personnel services, materials and services, debt service, capital outlay projects, which we're going to get to in a second. There's a lot of aspects that go into these forecasts and a lot of discussion that should be had if you choose.
So why
to
such
go.
a dip, Matt?
Yeah, where's the 2 million?
This is basically your revenue is not increasing as much as your costs are. So your personnel services that are increasing 7% each year, as well as your materials and services that
No,
are
the drop.
increasing 3%.
The drop.
Oh, you're talking about between the actual to estimated year end?
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. You're going to see the flip on that on the storm side. And the reason being is that
Oh,
because
we
your
divvied
sewer
those
and
two up.
storm used to be combined into one
That's right.
fund.
Okay, I
Yes.
just wanted it for the record.
Correct.
Yep.
It
So
doesn't look like we spent that money this
Yeah.
year.
correct. We did not spend that money. So you're going to see a big switch when we look at the storm department.
Right, because if you
that
just
will
look at
go
that
up.
one slide, it looks like.
Correct.
Where did the
So
budget go?
when I split out the funds into two separate funds, I took what I could best guess what the sewer portion was and what the storm portion was and put those into the funds. Once the audit was completed, we ended up having to kind of almost reverse some numbers because our auditors went back and reviewed and everything. We're able to pinpoint a few mistakes that I made when I did the transfer.
So it'd be safe to say, though, even with the increase in staffing 7%, at 2022, we'd probably be about flatline right there. I'm just looking at that.
Correct. Now, keep in mind that your personnel services and material services don't usually go down
Yeah.
every year.
Oh,
So
I
they'll
get that.
continue to
I get
rise
that.
as you go into the future.
Is there going to be a big rise coming up? Aren't they talking about that in the legislature?
Potentially.
What are you talking about, Councilor?
PERS.
increases.
yeah.
So in the next budget, we know what the rates will be for the next few years because those rates have already been released. And they're kind of in line with what we've already budgeted for this current year and going into next year. So for the next couple years, we're okay. But PERS increases are not going to go down anytime soon. So we need to have those discussions and make whatever changes you decide are in the best interest of the city.
I heard they've been ignoring it just so they could file bankruptcy on it.
Anyway,
Is that like a government shutdown?
That probably rippled throughout the state, that comment there.
So on the sewer fund, the good thing is currently right now you don't have a lot of capital improvement projects in the next 5 years. That $200,000 that you're seeing here is basically your main replacements. So those are your basic every year budgets for replacing some of the infrastructure for the sewer. The also good thing with a little carrot at the end, but most of this is the future projects through 2050. And most of the projects that are listed there are based on development. So if we don't have development, then there's no need to do those projects. Now, however, the carrot at the end is that the last master plan was done back in 1978. So it's a little bit of ways away, and it is on the docket for the Public Works Department to re-up their master plan. That's going to be done in here this next year, or started in this current year and completed. So for the sewer and storm fund.
Which pump is pump station 11? That's a big pump.
That's actually right now a very small station, relatively small station that serves pretty much a specific development, but it's over on the southwestern side of town. So as that area starts to develop, which is really the only area with large tracts that can be developed into subdivisions, that station will have to be relocated and upsized to handle the additional flows.
Okay.
So that was a project that was identified in a slightly more recent, a 1999-2000 study that was done, it's called the McNulty Area Sanitary Sewer Study.
Okay, so it will actually open up to McNulty Creek and behind Ross Road?
In that general
Childs
area.
Road?
Childs,
Road?
yeah.
Yep.
Right,
Okay.
right over in that general. It's actually located on Maple Street.
Potentially jump across the bridge that's built there on McNulty and go to our property?
Those.
Yep.
Yeah, there's
Yep.
sewer. There's sewer
That's
on
right.
that side of the
That's
creek
right.
that goes to a slightly
Yep.
different location.
That's right.
But
Okay. Sorry, Matt.
No, that's okay. No, not a problem.
It's a short work session. We're going to stretch it out a little bit.
This is the storm fund. So you can see a little bit of that jump in the estimated year-end balance that we discussed earlier. This is with a 5% increase every single year. So already by the end of 2025, we're looking at $1 million in the red. Now, like I said, we would never get to that point. We would make changes or whatever needed to get done before we got to that point. But this at least gives you a picture of even at a 5% increase every single year, with our current users, this is what we're looking at. Obviously, a big impact for the Storm and Sewer Fund are businesses. Obviously, you had Boise leave town and Armstrong that left as well. Those were very heavy users that helped supplement a lot of these residential rates. Now that those businesses are gone, they're not there to help supplement it as much.
And you've already addressed that in your budget here.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So this is also assuming that no big businesses come in.
Yep.
If you get a big business that comes in that replaces Armstrong, then that changes a whole lot as we look into the future. So that's why we do updates every single year and relook at this every single year. So at a 3.5% steady increase, it obviously gets a little bit worse at 1.3. 2%, it goes down to goes up to 1.6, and then doing nothing, it goes to about 2 million. So in the 5-year CIP, it's similar to the sewer fund where you don't have a huge amount of projects on the next 5 years. It's mainly the storm line replacements and then the middle trunk upgrade. And I think Sue had a couple notes on that.
yeah, I had suggested to Matt at this point in time to just defer any of the middle trunk upgrades to a later date because we are just getting ready to go out for the master plan upgrade or revision or a new master plan for the storm. And I'm going to guess they're going to suggest a lot different list of projects. The middle trunk is certainly something that we need to eventually address. It's holding its own at this time, but as development continues to occur, we're definitely going to need to be looking at that.
So from the updated master plan for the storm, which was back in 1991, this was the list of projects from that 2023 through 2050 timeframe. So showing about $18 million worth of projects in the future.
Greenway Basin. Chief, they named something after you already.
So I did want to give you a few ideas of what rates are looking at with other cities. The city of Hillsborough just recently did a 5 to 6% increase for residents and then 8.5% for industrial. City of Beaverton did a 3.3% on the fixed charges and then a 7.1% on consumption. Cornelius did a across the board 9.2% increase, as well as the city of Gaston had a 10.9% increase. And then the city of Gresham just recently did a 5.2% increase. So those are just some of the cities around here and what those rates of that I could find. I know there are a number of other cities that are directly around here, but it's very difficult to find what rate increases, if any, they had. So I did not include those. So moving forward, I guess the question is up to you to choose what you would like to do in the future. You have the option to increase all, none, one of them. You could do increase the fixed a certain percentage versus the consumption, just to get some kind of general ideas of where you would like to go in the future. I would like to recommend the first suggestion of the 3.5% across the board. That is based on the CPI and ENR indexes. The CPI and ENR index is something that was recommended by Steve Donovan when he came in and did his presentation about where you were going in the future. And that was his recommendation to the council to look at doing slow, moderate increases throughout the years. The other suggestion that I threw out there as an option is, because we are relatively well right now this year in our water fund, looking into the future, you could lower that lower than the 3.5% and choose to raise sewer or storm more. So I threw out a 2, 3.5, and 5% with respect to what you just saw. So that is the end of the presentation, and I guess I'm happy to answer any questions and get any direction on council on which way you would like to go.
I would like, if we're going to raise, 2% water, 2% on the sewer, and 3.5 on the storm, is the way I read it, and that keeps us to 2022. Everything above board. And keeps us out of the red for future employment growth too, in my opinion, at those rates. I do not want to raise water any more than we have to.
I don't think staff wants to raise water any more than they have to. I
would love to come here and say no rate increase is needed.
I think that the conversation ends up being a big step, little step kind of thing, whether you can have slow incremental rates or you have wait till it's almost the wheels coming off and you have to make big rates, and those are often a lot more controversial. And
well, I think we'd be safe also with the 90-day. I think we're good at those. That's my recommendation, is 2, 2, and 3.5. 2 water, 2 sewer, and 3.5 storm. That's just mine.
Any other thoughts from council members?
Roughly, that's close enough you could say a 2% increase.
I don't mind that because of the whole issue of anticipating corporations on the fringe of locating here. There's some in the works. There's talks of it. So in some senses, that's a very positive outcome for this. So I'll go along with what the mayor says. I'll go along with his recommendation. I don't have any tweaking really to work on that's going to make any difference, and it's more of a philosophy that hopefully with the new building and SDCs might also have an impact on that as well. I see the future development and especially of with our industrial area a positive turnaround on that.
Yes.
Correct. Yeah, it's important to understand that the forecasting models out what we are currently doing. It does not take into effect any potential new businesses that may come in the future.
For the storm, but also those storm and sewer guy are the same people that are employees. So that growth, that 7%, can be also, if we get somebody at Armstrong and we get an increase. I'm sorry, Jenny, but I kind of just got you just a little ahead of you.
I know. I'm waiting. I thought you were taking a pause.
So that being said, I think that's why I base that number off of is keep our fingers crossed that Armstrong gets filled soon. But there's no guarantee. That's why I said 3.5% on that. Go ahead.
I had a couple things. One is, what is the standard storm rate right now? Because obviously storm is not metered to the house. But how much are people seeing on their bill for storm? And what does a 5% increase mean, dollars and cents, for people on their bill?
I'm going to get logged back onto my computer. So
I'm saying this
I
because there's so much of this community that I realize that storm is so then you can pass all the streets and that the water drains away. But when people see a 5% increase and they have standing water in front of their house, makes them a little grouchy. So I wanted to see how much dollars that is. Because we always hear about this, like, there's no storm drain on my street, or, you know, my property drains into the creek. Why do I have to pay storm? And just different things like that. And I want to know.
That's a good point.
Yes.
And
What's the real amount? If
on the
it's
storm-
what's the standard amount, and what is 5% of that?
And then also at 2%. Both. Wanna know
Yeah,
both
I just
of them.
want to look at what the bill changes in dollars and cents for our customers.
So the current residential rate for storm is $11.33.
Well, 5% sounds high, but when you do the math, if it's 50 cents, that's different.
About 50 cents.
I just want to make sure people.
56 cents. 55 cents. Yeah.
I figured it was about 50 cents, just judging from my own bill. But so we're talking really $1.
Yeah, even increasing the storm 5% it's a minimal effect to the
But
overall
if we
total.
do as you suggest on an average bill, what is the increase?
Mine is $1.50, so it should be about $3.
Correct. When I was looking at an average utility
Looking
bill,
at mine, like you
I was
always
looking
are.
at yeah, that's right. I look at yours first.
It's like everybody. It's no secret. I mean, anybody that's gotten a bill this year knows your cable went up, your garbage went up, everything went up this year.
And I am a family of 4 that uses a lot of, you know, my kids do
A lot of
sports.
shampoo.
Yeah, a lot of shampoo, a lot of.
You have a teenage
sports.
daughter.
Yes.
Yeah.
Teenage boy. So.
So to give you an example, Mayor, your bill the other couple months ago was $151.97.
Yep.
If you did the 2%, 3.5%, and 5%, which was the second suggestion, your bill would go up to $156.49, so roughly $4.52. I think if my math is right. If you did 3.5% for everything, your bill would have gone up to $157.29. So $5.32.
$6.
Six.
Right? 151
No,
what?
151 to 157.
Okay.
$5.32.
So your percentages were what? 2?
Mine were 2, 2, and 3.5.
Okay, and then I wanted to hear from Mr. Topaz on the end. Do you have an opinion about water rates?
Water rates are not particularly a problem. Storm sewer, storm water, that to me is a very big problem. There's a number of places that we've got major problems in the whole system. And your projections of what it's going to cost us to fix those is what I'm afraid of. The typical numbers are cost of living type things. That's not a problem. The projects that are not listed that have to be done, it advertises our town when we don't have a good system. Of course, the big thing is we put some heavy industries in here. it becomes a moot point because they pay for it. So we've got two targets that we're moving in. We really have no good handle on.
Well, like I mentioned earlier, the master plans are due for updating, and the staff is currently working on that right now to get the RFP out to update those master plans to identify future projects and future infrastructure needs.
You know, one of the problems we had way back when, wasn't actually not that long ago, we were required to put storm drains in and sanitary drains in, and in many places we only put sanitary, with the storm drains being abandoned, flooding properties. And the original combined sewer had storm and sewer collected and dumped into the river. And when that got changed, a lot of the storm collection areas got changed, flooding properties, because we just eliminated storm collection on the streets. The other thing that's happened is we've repaved the streets, so a lot of the natural drainage that went from the center of the street to the curb, the streets have been raised over the curb, so now we go from the street over into the property. So there are some major system corrections that should be addressed, and that will blow that budget way out. We really do need to get some heavy industry here to pay for it.
So I would like to, as far as I know, to correct Councilor Topaz on one issue was that the storm would leak into the sewer, not the sewer would leak into the storm and we disperse it out into the Columbia. It was the opposite. The storm would actually go into the sewer. Correct? Yes. Okay.
Yeah, it was combined.
Yes.
It was a combined system. Everything went into the one pipe.
It went into the treatment facility.
No, this is prior to the treatment facility. At one time, our sewer system dumped directly into the river.
Maybe before I was born.
1960.
Yep. Yeah, I was born in 73.
Okay, so some of our system problems originated, actually the system was put in 1913, and it was the change was 1960, and that's when the storm collection was eliminated from the streets, but the stormwater that came into the combined sewer pipes was not changed until 2009. So there's been some major changes in how the systems work. And some of the streets have changed their altitude as much as 18 inches, giving you an idea about how drainage from the street has changed into properties.
So my question for Matt is the decision we make today, if that's for 1 year, 2 years?
1 year.
1 year. And that strategic plan should be done before we have to make this decision again?
The updated master plans,
Yeah.
you mean?
Not necessarily. It's going to take a considerable amount of time.
More than a year?
Potentially more than a year, because they generally need to do flow studies, which require study during a dry season and a wet season. We would still be in the midst of a wet season study if we do that next year.
So but in your opinion, given serving Prami every year you've been here, you don't think there's anything pressing that we're going to have to do in the next 36 months?
Nothing significant. Otherwise, we would have indicated that on the capital improvement plan.
You don't think that there's going to be some profound finding that's going to need immediate action?
Not necessarily. I mean, I could foresee a pump going out at a pump station or something like that.
But the plan wouldn't reveal probably that. That's
correct.
Like predicting an earthquake.
Correct. Yes, there you go.
I mean, there will be an effort over the next few years for the industrial park utilities to service those.
Right.
So there could be some impacts there as far as lift stations and water lines and sewer. And,
So, Rick, your idea was 2, 3, and 5?
2, 2, and 3.5.
2, 2, and 3.5.
And that was Matt's idea. 2, 3, 5.
Okay. And Mr. Locke, you've seen a few more rate increases than the rest of us.
What I would like to see, whatever we do, is I would like to see a real detailed report to our citizens why we got to where we're at and the cause and effects of the last 30 years, because they don't know that story. And I think I don't know what the actual rate is, tripled last 15 years or 10 years actually.
Yep.
And that's what they're mad about, and they don't know why.
You're talking about the impact of,
I'm talking about
loss of heavy industry in our community at this point.
Not just the loss of heavy industry, but the council didn't do raises for eons. We put off infrastructure for eons. All those reasons of why we're here today. Because that's the whole impact, and they don't know that.
No, the main impact. We know the main impact. Any locals know it.
No, I'm not talking about the industry so much.
I'm talking about something that, how you used to supplement the water bill.
Well, not even
The
that
city
so
used
much.
to.
Yeah, that's part of the story, but
Us
there's also-
locals
there's-
know.
There's a lot of things that they don't know about. So that's what I would like to see, that we put that out there in a media blitz so everybody understands. Because if you understand why we're at, then you don't feel so bad about it.
That may be something to look at and that we include in utility bills that go out. But I'd be happy to start working on something like that.
On a positive note, we did build a brand new water treatment facility. It was mandated by the state, but we're on the back nine of that, having that paid for. So that'll be a relief on rates in the future as well.
And it's a very nice
State of the art.
I have yet to go out there and see Howie, but I'm going to. I know.
Our facility is second to none. I mean, Portland was modeling. They're having a big crisis discussion about water and the filtration, microfiltration, and how much that was going to cost. And we've already got it. So.
The one thing, and this probably goes in the master plan, sooner or later we're going to have to get rid of our sewer plant and modernize that. How do we think about the future of a major hiccup in our sewer system? Where's it going to go, or where's possible it's going to go? What will it have to do? Can we combine with Scappoose? I mean, obviously I'm thinking further down the road than next week. But how do we think about that for possible future plans as compared to possible plans, but possible future plans?
We have done some work on that, some preliminary work on relocating. The discussion with Scappoose is always on the table.
But the conversation for today, I concur with Doug and the mayor about the number breakout works for me. I just had to hear the math.
So we're talking not even a 2% roughly across the board, because it's 2, and 3.5. So 3% is not going to be not even a $5 bill, right? For me personally,
I can tell you what you personally.
it's going to be $4.50.
I'm hesitant to say it's not going to be $4 more. The reason being that is because I say $4 and then
Lots of
somebody
people
decides
have
to take a
higher
longer shower and then their bill's $5 and
That's why
I'm
you
going to
use the
hear
term
about it.
average.
So
On my 151, it's going to be roughly $4.50.
roughly on your particular
Yep.
bill, yeah. If you use the exact same amount of water and yes.
Okay.
So I'll come back at the next council meeting and we'll probably have to do a public hearing and go through the process and everything. But I'll prepare that for the next meeting.
Yeah, and the topics that Councilor Topaz brought up should be part of a conversation separate from the rates, but we need to talk about a strategic plan for that as well.
Well, Councilor Morton just whispered in my ear, Keith's recommendation is a good recommendation too, that we have a detailed why we have to increase it. So,
And did you have a percentage?
I'm good with your numbers. That's fine. Rick's numbers.
Mr. Topaz, did he have a percentage?
No, really. I mean, we got to do what we got to do. I mean, whether we like it or not, we know we don't like it. So we're even on that. It's just we got to tell people what actually is happening. Rumors are great for going the wrong direction. So the truth is a big help.
yep, agree.
Yeah, and on the opposite side of that, on the truthful side of that, we all need to weigh in on what we think the percentage would be. and be, in some senses, held accountable for that. So that's all. I'd like to know what my fellow council has weighed in at.
The big elephant in the room is how much we've got to pay PERS. Other things we can take care of by better design when we replace for long term. It's the politics of what we've got to pay to people that's our biggest cost and really our biggest unknown. If you got a broken pipe, you got to fix the broken pipe. If it costs you $7 a foot, that's what you got to pay, whether you like it or not. Tough. That we can tell, but when it comes to how much we've got to take care of, how long our retirees are going to be with us, what other rules are coming up, that's our, we'll say, the spot that hurts and the spot we have no control of.
I understand all of that. What's your percentage?
Don't know. I can tell you 2% it will get us for a while. We can, as it's been pointed out, we can always readjust as we go along. It isn't like we're stuck with this for the next 50 years. Okay. This is just
a 1 year
one year.
Right.
1 year at a time.
If we do this, this is theoretically what we're going to look at 10 years. Oh, it changed. Well, we got to change something. And horrible if the fact we have to reduce it.
We'll be having this conversation next year at this time.
I don't see why we shouldn't have this discussion every year to keep our citizens informed what is happening. Because, as been pointed out, this is information that comes in on other things that affect our water bill. As those things change every year, we have to tell our citizens this is what has happened this year. So I'm not afraid of having this discussion every year.
Okay.
Super.
Thank you, Councilor Topaz. Okay, Matt, so you've got directive.
So on the spectrum of little steps to big steps, the consultant, the consumer price index, it's a little bit higher than that. So we're, if you can imagine this as two trains chasing each other here, inflation's outrunning this a little bit. So we're a little bit behind, but there's some wild cards in here with, industrial growth opportunities and things that could have major influence. And
yep.
So just we're raising rates as low as we can to kind of still be able to see the back of the big train. So
I'm driving a locomotive here.
But it's pulling away.
Okay. Discussion regarding time of council work session meetings. This was brought up by Patrick and Berkeley. And so I felt it was worth the discussion.
Kathy, I think, is going to do the lead on that. So.
Kathy, could you turn on your mic?
So at the last council meeting, it was discussed a little bit. As you said, Patrick Berkeley was here. You asked the department heads to go back and talk about it, and we did at a management team meeting. And we came up with, I handed out a council action sheet at your seats, and we came up with some pros and cons, and we were, we listed quite a few different things and really talked about it a lot. And I think one of the things that John and I had a discussion about was we kind of wanted to see, well, what is the purpose? What is the council trying to focus on? What would be the purpose of changing our meeting times? And we came up with the desired outcomes would be for open and transparent government, more opportunity for public input, participation in decision making, and then what other reasons that might come about. And the open and transparent government, we've always wanted that. I mean, you're always talking about wanting to have open and transparent government and to have public input. So with those considerations, what would bring about that open and transparent government? And there's other ways you can get that besides having to have meetings at night. Right. And one of those things is communication, communicating to the public when that basically that you're open to the public anytime. You're available by phone.
But
You're
their
always
input is wanted and needed. They can do written testimony.
They can do written testimony.
They can do
They
all kinds of.
they
There's a
can-
number of ways.
exactly. So we want to be able to push that message out to everybody to say, you may not be able to make it to a work session during the day, but you can come to one at night, or you can write a letter, you can call, you can do these other things. So we're not going to limit you. We want you to know.
Absolutely.
So,
Like,
so that's
for an
just-
example, the water. We're going to get a percentage, and we're going to have a hearing on it, an actual hearing in the evening, because it's always a hot topic, and that's just the way the city runs. Has since I got here, probably long before I got here, right, Counselor?
Used to have work sessions in the morning.
In the morning?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was the other thing we talked about. Was we used to have them at 10 o'clock in the morning, then we had them at noon, and now we have them at 1. I did a poll of other cities that have them, and there's a lot of them that have them. Mostly have them. You guys are going to laugh because most of them have work sessions at 6 o'clock, and then a regular session at 7.
Yeah, that is
they have
laughing.
that there is not enough time. You guys have
We're already
very
past
long.
it.
Exactly.
We're 20 minutes past it.
You guys have very long discussions. You would never be able to have hour-long work sessions, and that's the thing is like you guys have you have deep discussions. I can't. You just have a lot of meat to your
Well, it
discussion.
comes from our council, our form of government. That's where that comes from.
Exactly. I think you're right, and the culture here is that's just the way it is. And so from our discussion in the management team, and I'm open to have everybody else talk about it, but I think that most of us anyways, are for keeping it the way that it is. But if you are thinking of changing it, then we would say go out for a survey. We have an account with SurveyMonkey. We could go out for a public survey and see what the public wants. If the public, if you guys really want to.
I don't think they understand, though, exactly what we do. I mean, it sounds good on a survey. I mean, that's,
Well, and we already know how many people come to our meetings.
Yes.
And we have had one person that has said, change the meeting tonight. So it's.
And I've only heard, and to be fair, I've only heard it from that one person since I've been sitting here in the 2 years about our work session.
Right.
Well,
And it's been 3 times that he showed up and said that. And just to be fair.
I missed him saying it this last time, but I have heard him before. Every time I come to a meeting, I take time off from work to do so. And I make that choice on my own to do that. And you're free to do that written testimony. And it'd be easier if we had meetings at 4 o'clock for me, unilaterally easier. But
It'd be easier for me if we had them at 8 o'clock in the morning or 8:30.
right, but it's not about our convenience. It's about a convenience of government convenience.
Yes.
And government convenience happens at the time that it's set up. But his point of allowing more citizen participation doesn't fall on deaf ears, because I do think we need to invite the public into more process. There are a lot of communities that do State of the City addresses even on Saturdays and present all the stuff we're working on and get input. Like, I think that it's no accident that during SSTAT and all the different proposals we've done, everybody's all happy and excited, and then the proposal gets put in its book, and then people feel like we're not doing anything or feel like they don't know what's going on. And maybe we need to have the opportunity for people to engage once a year. Here's our progress report. This is what we've done. This is what's happening. Even if it's just us, a chance to interface at their convenience as opposed to at the government convenience. Kind of an open house, state of the government kind of thing, to where it would be like the events they've had at Meriwether Place, to allow people to talk to us, to talk to each other, to feel part of the process, separate from rearranging the whole meeting schedule for staff.
There actually were a couple of cities that do. One of them, they called it a fireside, and they meet at a local coffee shop, I think. And it's a very casual place, and they meet and they discuss what's going on, and the public comes out, and it's very informal, but they can talk about whatever's going on. It's nothing.
Yeah, it's not
It's not
decision
this.
making, it's just conversation.
Right, it's just conversation, and
I think that's important.
yeah, and it's not this, you know,
Not
it's
this
not
formality.
the formal, right?
Right, it's more about, this is what we've done, this is what we're thinking about, what do you think? Not making decisions and formal plans.
Yeah.
Just having exchanges of ideas.
I like the expansion of the park with the fire pit being in there, and I like that idea of a fireside
Yeah.
get together.
Now, I come from a very, very different tradition. It's called town meeting. Town meetings in New England typically start at 7 o'clock and go to 12 o'clock at night. If the business isn't finished by 12 o'clock, the selectman, in our case the mayor, says this meeting is adjourned. We'll re-adjourn tomorrow at 7 o'clock. Now, the other process that's different, we have in our meeting here 5 minutes where the community can make comments, and then after that they basically sit and listen. In town meetings, as the business of the town goes along, people from the community can raise their hand and interject information. It does make it messy, it does make it long, but it does allow the community to be totally involved. Now, the next thing that going on time, we obviously have to pay our staff. So we put that into the contract. They will be paid whatever the rate is for this time, but this is part of their job. It isn't an extra. The other thing that a lot of communities have, and it's the ability of the community to get to the city, is they stay open at 12 o'clock during the noon, so people who have jobs they can't really leave come at noon in their lunch hour and do some of the city business, which means you have to have a rotating staff in the city hall to handle that and have compensation time other times. So this business of connecting to the community when the community can. In the old days when you worked at the mill, if you missed, you were fired. I mean, so that basically cut off a huge hunk of the population in this town from coming here. And a lot of our history, you had to be white, male, and own property to have any say. Unfortunately, a lot of those laws have gone by the books, but some of our tradition and some of these meeting habits, I'll put them, or traditions, started way back when in the 1800s, and we should really re-examine where our workers are when they're working, where our citizens are that are workers when they're working, because they're no longer local, and that's most of the people will have a hard time getting back here with the traffic by 7. So I think we really have to think hard. Now, a lot of people listen on the radio and television, but they can't participate down here. They can write a letter, but the person next to them doesn't hear what they're saying to make a comment on the other guy's comment. That's the one problem about writing letters or just listening. In order to participate, you've got to be together, which means everybody's got to get together and be able to listen and talk. So I'm really for somehow having 1 or 2 meetings or just one continuous meeting, combine the work session and city council meeting, the regular council meeting at one time. But right now we've basically amputated better than 80% of our people. Our 18-year-olds who are in high school, they can't get here. So we've got to do some hard thinking if we want the community to participate.
Kudos to the staff. I heard what Patrick had to say, and I've weighed in on it several times. So I'm the guy who asked the staff or recommended that the staff take a look at this, and we would look at staff recommendations. I hear from you the staff recommendations is leave it the way it is, and I am very impressed with your action sheet and your findings in writing. I appreciate that so much. That helps clarity for us to come up with a decision. Staff has weighed in. I know how staff feels about it. And right now we've got pretty much, I'm really not certain where, if there's any feelings of really moving this to an evening session. I don't hear it. I think there's other kinds of things that we can do. And then, what I've kind of been thinking about is our goals. Goal number 1 is to provide effective governance and physical management. The second goal that we have for council is improve service, communication, and relationships. And in some senses, maybe our citizens need to know where we're at on each one of our goals. We have got to know where we are at on each one of our goals. We form these goals annually to work that direction, and I think that's what's missing. And in some senses, we could have maybe a public forum, or we could dedicate one of our evening sessions to talk about our goal number 1, goal number 2.
Well, that's
the ones I just said, the ones I just reflected on, and say, okay, this is where we're at. This is what we have done.
That's why I recommended the
Totally.
Gresham-style goal system.
Totally.
Councilor Morton.
Yeah.
Because, and I want a bi-monthly report from staff and owners on those goals of where we're at.
Yeah.
So we're going to get them 5 times a year this coming up year if we do our goal setting the way, hopefully, it can be facilitated in that amount of time, but to do something like that in this short amount of time is going to be an uphill battle.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to staff recommendations and their interviews and seeing what they have on their list as well.
Well, we look at our goals, and we have accomplished a lot on each one of these bullet points on our goals. I just look at that and I go, wow, we've done this and at this part of the year, and we've done that on this time. We just need to go over those things, I think, in one of our evening meetings, and just say, and let it out. Tell the public what we've done. And I think that's important. We could move our council session to some place like the high school auditorium or some other place, the Elks Club or something, but I kind of think this is the place to do it. And the fact is that we need to do it.
So I know we're going to talk about that at our retreat. So this will be a hot topic. But so the only thing that I would recommend as far as meetings is because sometimes our night meetings are anywhere from 4 to 2 hours, or 4 minutes to 2 hours. They're usually short. We should kind of pick a hot topic, like water rates would be a hot topic, and discuss that in our evening meeting. We could pick a topic each meeting and just.
Won't we have a public hearing for that process, though?
We will.
Keith?
Yeah.
I mean, that's so.
But sometimes we don't always have public hearings for those things. I'm
and
saying every meeting. We
and I
talk
hear you.
about something.
I always strive to serve our community better. I always strive to serve our community better. But we are doing a lot. Crystal just gave us a report on from communications that she just pushed. I seen it on Facebook. City council meeting happening today, 1 p.m. work session, and then regular session at 7 p.m. I just seen it today. They're constantly doing that.
I'm not arguing with you.
No. But our public hearings are very well. I get maybe like a State of the Union type address. If we need to do something like that, fine, I get that. But I mean, I don't know how much more. We can always do a little bit better because nobody's perfect. But we're doing a pretty good job of this, folks. We really are, of communicating and letting people be a part of the community and say their piece. Budget committee is getting ready to come up, and we have a large budget committee that has input on that. And any of the developments, the zoning changes, all our public hearing, anything that affects this city in a major way has a public hearing around it. Period.
Or public forum. We bring it forward at the time.
Yep.
One of the problems, you got to listen to what you just said. And I agree with Councilor Morton. We tell people what we've done. We're getting better at that. The public meetings are more of what the public wants. They're basically the upfront, and his reports are what are behind. One says we actually got it done, and the forum or the public meeting where we get most of the public is what we need or what we want. And we've got to keep in mind that there are two different purposes there. Yes, we are communicating. We've got public or non-public available. But one of the things we definitely have to do is this is what we've done. But we've got to hear what do we need to do. Now, some of what we need to do will come from this side of the bench. But some of the things will come from the other side of the bench, and some of the population is very, very good at that and maybe much better at it than we are. So we have to be careful when we communicate which way we're communicating. Are we done, or this is what we need? Thank you.
So the question, though, the hot topic discussion here is changing the meeting time, our work session meeting time. So we kind of got a little sidetracked with everything, but that's the time. Is everybody okay with? I recommend keeping it the same.
Do you want me to make a motion for that?
I don't think we need
Or do we just need a head
I don't
nod?
think we need a head nod because it's already in play.
My motion is to keep it the way it is. Or my recommendation is to keep it the way it is.
I've said my piece.
With more communication involved.
Yep.
You agree?
I concur that Patrick surfaces a need for more engagement. I don't think that necessarily means rearranging the meeting for all 12 months, because I've sat here long enough to know that it doesn't matter if it's a daytime or nighttime, still the same 3 people. So I don't want to rearrange the whole schedule for the whole year for that, when we can have a big event and publicize it and let people engage, whether it's a fireside or
I like that
a
fireside.
town hall or whatever it
That'd be
is, to have something to invite people to engage, to make a point to get on their schedule. Because I don't think just moving the meeting is going to make people engage more. People either plug in or they're not. Because I think that we need to leave the meetings, and if we need to plan something else, and to answer Patrick's question about community, answer that in a different way, besides moving the meeting tonight. Does that make sense?
Yes.
There's still a big question mark over Kathy's head. But.
I want to piggyback on that as well, and as well as Mr. Topaz's. And if we, I believe that the timing of our meetings is effective, and I believe it's efficient. So I don't see at this time changing anything that way. However, at nighttime, in our evening meetings, they go so fast many times. If we could take a goal, this one goal, our goal 2, which none of our public know what goal, they're clueless about what our goal 2 is. But if we took that, improve service, communications, and relationships, and have the desired outcome is there. But, the first bullet point on that is provide an open, inclusive, transparent government. We should be able to say what Mr. Topaz was alluding to, what we have done and what we are going to do. What we have done thus far. This is what we've done this year. We've done this and this. Well, just last year we opened it up for that. And this is where we want to go. And I just see that as a good kind of discussion for our community. Well, 2 months later, let's go over goal number 4. 2 months after that, let's go over goal number 3. And that could be a caveat to bring people into our council because they are issues. How are we going to improve service, communication, and relationships? And there was a person that ran against me in this last election who was all about that. Just that goal, improve service, communications, and relationships. And she was very effective in obtaining a lot of votes, in a sense, that way, too. So that tells me that the entire council, and we can provide a better effort in communicating what our goals are, where we're at, where we're going, and what we've done.
That's honestly, Doug. I mean, I'm just going to interject. That's been my entire reason for wanting to go to Gresham style goals, is to start implementing and having updates, because this hasn't came out till we're actually looking at our goals right now,
Exactly.
and this gets shoved away. And when he brought it out, I was like, yeah, I haven't looked at that all year.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm not going to sit here and BS anybody, but with this new style of goal setting where you have owners where they have to report bi-monthly, especially it keeps everything in perspective. That's the entire reason for going to this goal system, is to make a more efficient, well-run machine, because we are a machine. Government is a machine. Any corporation is. It just runs. It don't care. One individual thinks, oh, they're going to miss me when I'm gone. Nope. It just chews you up, spits you out. Somebody else fill your shoes. That's just the way it goes.
I have a suggestion then. Just like there's the first Thursday of the month, why don't we do something like that for the council to do?
For goal setting?
Yeah, to do, if it's every other month, we do something like that, and you guys can discuss it at your
Great
goal
idea.
setting, and we'll set it up for the whole year.
Great
We'll advertise for it, and we'll push it out with the media, social media, and so people can plan for it in advance, and they'll know what it's about, because we'll set it for goals. And
Yep. And if anybody has a question about any project, the project owner needs to be accountable and present where they're at on it.
yeah,
So we have 5 goals. Every other month makes sense, starting in like March,
Yep.
okay,
because you give January, February a little time to digest, and
okay.
Yeah, well, we haven't even had a retreat yet to start discussing
Yeah.
it. So,
But we do have the existing goals, and I mean,
yes.
and
Right.
I mean,
No,
as much as they get looked at, I know that as part of the budget process, and staff, at least myself, uses it pretty intimately. We look to those. Our budget document is built off the goals, and all the programs have
Good.
tiebacks to the goals. And that's probably why
We have
we've
followed it.
completed a
We
lot
have
of the
followed it.
things
Yes.
on the list.
Yes.
It's
But-
certainly time for an update.
but it hasn't been in the, you know what I mean? It doesn't get brought up.
Yep.
So
And
I looked at it. We have followed it.
I think the question with this moving the meeting time is kind of moving around a little bit, but the variables we put as far as, and I think it's a question really, it's like, would changing the meeting time influence, impact, benefit open and transparent government? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe it's a different day of the week. Maybe it's something outside of a council meeting and it's a forum.
I like the 10 o'clock time followed by a lunch, and then we can have.
Is there more opportunity for public input? Same kind of thing. Decision making. I think that's kind of the barometer of we strive to engage people, where they're at. This improved communication. Crystal gave a report earlier. I mean, our social media numbers just blow. Where peers are. Hillsborough, Gresham. Actually, the peer was City of Vancouver, I think, which hundreds of thousands of people, and we have 7,600 followers on our information when we push things out over various pages, and I think we do a pretty good job, and I think that's a good way to engage with the public. But they still don't come to the meeting. But that information is getting out in the community. There are programs and software and that allow for feedback even in live meetings. You can text and try to manage that, which there's been some resistance to. It's really difficult, but yeah, I think we are. It's on our minds. I'll say that. So.
Well, I will, just out of respect, I'll draft up a letter to give to Patrick, just to let him know that we did vet it out, and I'll work with John on that. And,
Appreciate that.
And then we'll, after you guys do your goal setting, then we'll plan out the I want to say fireside, because I like that idea too, but we'll do something for the public. So, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Kathy. Council Morton, you want to share that? We also meet another goal with this working with Hudson Garbage, just by donating some money and showing up and doing a little volunteerism. They were able to, got a thank you card from them.
Yeah, we'd all like to thank the city. We are writing thank you for your donation to our Hudson bike build. We are so grateful for generosity in our community. Because of this, we were able to donate 141 bikes to children in our county. The feeling we experienced while delivering them was truly amazing. Thank you, Karen and Herb. And then I pointed out to the mayor, says, there's a goal right there. One of it is provide an inclusive, transparent government, encourage citizen involvement. And that's what this did. And there's a thank you acknowledgement to it. So those things our public needs to know, that we are working on our goals, and this is what's just happened.
Yep. And that just happened, and with John reiterating that we do follow that. It's just, we don't bring it up often enough. Yeah, I haven't seen this since that sheet since we worked on it, to be honest. I got to be completely honest, right?
That's fair.
So, okay. So, thank you, Kathy, for doing that. Department reports. Chief Greenway.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Could I just dovetail on what you were saying as a suggestion as you guys come up for your retreat?
Mm-hmm.
The goals which is spoken about, which is great, but to incorporate some type of accountability piece.
Mm-hmm.
The reality in my world is that council doesn't achieve the goals. You set the direction, you set the goals,
Yep.
and the strategies and tactics in achieving those are up to staff. So if we're wanting the public to, we want to be transparent and see the public, we should almost consider a quarterly report from the departments on how we're achieving these goals, and then maybe a pre-printed form or document. But it starts with the strategic planning on your end of setting,
Yes.
the vision, the values, the missions, the goals, strategy, tactics,
Yep.
and then it's up to us to accomplish that. And the roadmap is once a quarter to report on what we did. So perfect example was Crystal today. The goal is open communication. The strategy was for her was to, open communication in community, and the tactics she used was the newsletter. But that could be reported on a quarterly basis on a document that could be made available to the public on the website, and that would kind of maybe alleviate of how we go about these goals. And it's just a consideration. Again, it's direction is
We're talking about every 2 months.
Every 2 months?
Other month.
Okay.
Every other month doing that.
Right, because it would give us a chance to. Right.
Even if it's a verbal saying this is where we're
Understandable, right? And that's just an idea. Again, not trying to tell anybody, but just something that, because without an accountability piece, then we just don't. We a lot of talk. And again, I'm not trying to overstep my bounds, but it's just from my experience of putting that piece in, then people go, oh, okay, he's going to ask about this or she's going to ask about this. So, but enough said. Sorry, I'll move. I didn't mean to digress or take that away. I'm kind of
that's good.
Looking forward to the goals for 2019. So one area from the police department that's surfaced recently, and I need a head nod from everybody or just to be aware of this. And myself today, Mr. Blitz, John, and Matt had talked about this. As everybody knows, St. Helens Police Department is a 24/7 operation, the only police agency in the county that operates 24 hours a day. And
we're the only in Columbia County?
Yes, that operates 24 hours a day.
Not even
coverage.
Columbia County does it?
Not the sheriff's office, no. They
Wow.
stop.
Wow.
So what has occurred, and it's now becoming a norm and surfacing, is that they are relying on St. Helens resources to go outside of the city limits of St. Helens to respond. We do have a policy that's very vague, in my opinion, on the direction to the officers and staff at St. Helens Police Department on when they can and can't go. There'll never be a for certain you can never go because we don't know what will happen.
Yeah.
But so I'm looking at rewriting this policy to be a little more stringent on when we do offer police services outside, because it's evident that I have to be very careful how I word this. At times, they're relying on St. Helens Police Agency to provide police services outside of our city limits, and we're basically not doing what we should be doing for our citizens.
So what could happen is they could be on a call outside, and it really is a legit call, but all of a sudden they're there, and then all of a sudden we have the wheels fall off.
Exactly.
And you're calling other people in for overtime.
Exactly.
And not that it's all about money, because we're about serving the public.
Correct.
But our citizens in the city limits are paying for the police.
Correct. And that the responses outside of the city limits have surfaced of incidents or events that weren't emergency in nature, life-threatening, life-saving.
Yes.
The run-of-the-mill routine calls, I just don't, I think that there needs to be a little more, for lack of a better term, clamping down on what we do, because we report to the citizen, we report to community, there's who we serve. Again, it's not saying we won't help outside jurisdictions, but we certainly aren't going to be responding to any type of calls that don't rise to the level of life safety.
Sure, because anytime it's life safety, everybody responds, right?
Yes.
And it's all hands on deck.
Correct. And the reason we were just looking into this for intergovernmental agreements, and we got all that worked out, but we're just now this kind of surface. So I'm just looking for if that's approval, a head nod, that's, I pretty much know that's the direction we want to go. But at the same time, I also understand that you have a major input onto our city. And
well, I just got to say this, and I know they paid to retain their police out there in Columbia City, but I've watched a number of times when you weren't chief, anywhere from three vehicles ended up out in Columbia City, just behind the racquetball club in that newer neighborhood.
Yes.
And not one Columbia City cop car and 3 of ours. And I thought, it didn't seem like it was really an emergency because there was no EMS, no fire, but
it's alarming. It is alarming that again, we'll chalk it up to just maybe we got to meet in the middle. But I think that because of the precedents, we're just always they call, we go, and that's what is concerning. So we're going to start changing the culture a little bit, and I'll work with the other entity heads to kind of explain our situation and let them understand that this is not a for certain we're not going, but we're going to limit the cases we do.
And
go.
I had noticed it before that, but that time it alarmed me enough to call John and say, "Do we get a stipend or something from Columbia City?" Because I called the administrator here. On the weekend, I think, even. And he said, "No, we don't."
No.
I said, "Well."
It's concerning to me that because it's kind of like we need a higher level of staff, but not for our city, but to cover the region because they're not covering themselves.
Well, we do need a higher number of staff, ma'am. But for City of St. Helens. But yes, you're right. It's and to be very transparent, it's hard for me to justify asking for more officers when we're policing other areas of the county that other people are responsible for.
But we're not getting credit for it.
Absolutely not. We're not getting paid. We're putting our officers at risk. And I always say, if we're going to Vernonia for something, and I'm just using an example that I'm not because we're on TV, and then one of our officers hits a deer at 2 a.m. Well, we're out of car. We're officer, hopefully won't be injured. There's just a lot of liability, and we're assuming that for nothing, for no payment, no agreement, and for something that didn't rise to the level that I believe that we should have been responding to.
That mutual aid should have been an issue.
Yes. So that's what. So with your blessing, I'll go ahead and start revamping. I'm also looking at other policies to.
So in looking at surrounding cities and knowing how difficult it can be for them to retain their police, is there any way in a contract that it could word also that you could hire and that type of service?
Yes. ORS, Oregon Revised Statutes Chapter 190 actually spells out intergovernmental agreements, and there's a subsection in there that states that if you wanted to charge, both cities would have to agree.
Yes. And
for
possibly even
services.
the county.
Yes, whoever, both county, city. Yeah, we would come to an agreement and say that this is a possibility. But again, the whole, we're going to stop doing that unless it's an absolute life safety measure because the citizens of St. Helens deserve better.
Got it.
So that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
One way to limit things is always charge money for it. Could you basically, and I don't know how the law goes, say, okay, if we have to cover your police needs, you're basically paying us overtime for, say, any incident, you got to pay us 6 hours, and over 6 hours you pay. I mean, I'm obviously talking about designing a contract for us providing when they have a problem with non-manpower, like where their offices are off. Okay, we'll do that, provided we're not being required here in St. Helens, but you're going to pay us 6 hours minimum overtime rate and sign a contract with them.
Yes,
Is that
that's-
possible?
I believe it is possible, Counselor, because that's spelled out in ORS that you can charge for that. If something was to occur to another smaller agency and they needed our assistance, and then once it becomes routine, that's where we get, that's, let's say, for example, a community needed a crossing guard, and we had to put a uniform officer out there, and they needed that crossing guard every day, Monday through Friday at 3:00. Well, then, yes, that's something we need to contract out with them for. Or we can even contract that if you do request our assistance, that there's going to be a bill attached to it. So that might limit that as well. But we don't have those agreements now.
Because one of the billing systems is we have this agreement that for this incident, you pay us $6. If we keep getting these same incidents, after 10 incidents, the rate goes up, and make it to a point where if they're requiring our help to a certain point, it will be cheaper for them to hire their own person.
Correct.
So have an escalating contract for providing these services.
Yes, and we're faced with that. A little plug here for police department. We're faced with that now if we because we have to pay overtime when we have officers sick. However, we just hire more folks, then we would reduce those overtime costs.
But I
Shameless
think a
plug.
creative contract.
Yes, we can be with Mr. Walsh and Matt here. Absolutely, we'd come up with something. They are the brain trust of this city. So.
All right, Mr. Walsh, you want to chime in on that?
I was just going to offer a couple examples. The city of Class Canine contracts with Columbia County for an enhanced level of service. Also, the city of Cornelius, Washington County provides their services, and they go so far as to change the names of the side of the cars, and they have this enhanced level of service because that was an important value to them. And there's just a number of examples about these interactions of, the basic level of service. You have a county that taxes their tax rate, and then the cities have a tax rate on top of that pays for public safety. So we're paying for both levels of that, and those communities want that, but they can't afford a police department, so they contract somewhere in the middle to increase those services. And there's a lot of good examples.
I wish you would have told me that, though, because I know that our area struggles, even though we're the county seat, struggles with county police officers being adequate in the area, and it sounds like they might be in Class Canine. So I need to go talk to our county commissioners and find out what the heck is going on.
We're the night shift and so much more.
We do have a good relationship with the sheriff's department. In fact, I met with Sheriff Bixley yesterday, and as they, just keep this back in mind, they also give us resources for Halloween Town, and we're going to help them out with the the fair. So there's a lot of give and take. We're going to start training together in case there's we could. It's just there's a lot of cost savings and partnering. I mean, but I also understand there's cost savings and
yes,
and not putting our officers outside of the city limits unless absolutely necessary.
We'll find that medium ground.
All right, thank you, sir.
Yes. Okay, Sue. Before you get started, I have a question on our House bill as far as our bridge conditions and road.
Yes.
And it says we haven't submitted it yet, so we have to.
We have submitted it.
Okay.
Yes.
Well,
we had 14.
That's the state for you.
Okay. We had 14 miles of roads in fair condition, 1 mile of road in good condition, and 2 bridges in fair condition and 1 bridge in good condition.
Excellent.
And that is the
And the Milton Creek, the Milton Way is the good one?
That's not actually on their inventory. So
really?
That one, the one, I'm sorry, not Milton Creek. The one on McNulty Creek is not in their inventory. The one, which one over Milton Creek?
Oh, I'm thinking our own personal bridge.
We
maybe.
have 3. Yeah. There's 3 bridges.
The new one on Milton Way.
On Milton Way. That one is the only one in good condition. Yep. And the other 2 crossing Milton Creek.
I just had to ask. I got the letter, so.
Yeah, I get the letters. I've been getting the letters and the emails and everything else.
Yep.
But, pardon? Only one of those, sorry. One of which?
Milton Creek. One on Columbia Boulevard.
Columbia Boulevard, Milton Way, and on Old Portland Road, and they all cross Milton Creek.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
She knows her bridges.
We don't have that many. The county's got a huge long list, so So anyway, the reporting is all done. We did actually have a small amount of road when we completed the road inventory. We had a small amount of roadway that was in poor condition, but the reporting is only in increments of 1 mile, and we had like a quarter of a mile, so there wasn't enough to report in poor condition. So,
I just want one comment to that too, and they set the standards of
They
what's
set the
poor
standards.
and what's good and what's bad. So you might
yes,
Sure.
look at one and you think it's bad, but it's really fair by their standards.
Right,
of
correct.
What we had to rate them at.
Okay.
that's correct. They have a it's fairly simplified, but they have a particular standard that meets these criteria, and then that's how you categorize it. So, yeah, all taken care of.
Okay. So what do you have to report on it?
Okay, I do have
Okay.
a few things. First of all, if you recall, a few months ago, we had a couple of people that came in and commented about sidewalks on North Vernonia Road and being able to get a more safe crossing to get people over to the park. So we started working with a consultant on getting together a scope of work last fall. And I've been going back and forth with them and trying to find the kind of sweet spot as far as the encompassing scope and getting everything put together. So I just yesterday received the final draft of that, and I feel that it incorporates everything that we wanted. And once we started looking at the whole project, we had initially anticipated only doing sidewalk on one side of the road, on the southerly side of the road that would connect up to the newer subdivision up near the intersection of Pittsburgh Road, all the way down around North Vernonia and all the way down to across from MacArthur Park, or MacArthur Street, where the existing sidewalk begins. So we were only originally going to look at that side. When we started looking into the whole project and looking into what our options were, and again trying to balance that cost effectiveness, we really realized that doing both sides of the road would be much more cost effective from a design standpoint and from a construction standpoint. So I now have a finalized scope of work from the engineer to do the surveying and the design work to do sidewalks on both sides of the road on North Vernonia, all the way from the newer subdivisions where the existing sidewalk is and all the way down around the corner, with a new crossing somewhere mid-block on the straight stretch of North Vernonia there between Franz Street and MacArthur Street. So somewhere in there, crossing over to the park, there would be a logical place where there's good sight distance for a new crosswalk, hopefully with a flashing beacon, something that would be very visible and very safe for people to use. So in order to try to expedite this, and because we want to try to get the design work, the survey work, etc., started as quickly as possible, I'm not sure if we're open to putting this on the agenda for tonight for approval, but if we can wait until the first meeting in February. That, of course, is going to delay the project by about 3 weeks.
Yeah.
But we do want to. The goal here is to get this work started, get the design finalized, get it out to bid before the end of the spring bidding season, so that we can get under construction in the summer and get this finished by the fall of this year.
I think we all want to do it now.
Sooner than later.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So
We do have the project identified in this year's budget. It is eligible for, Matt, I believe about 50% of SDC funding. So and the
Good.
rest of that would come out of our STP funds that we receive from the state.
Yeah, let's put it on tonight.
Okay, Kathy, are you going to hate me forever? Okay. Okay, just for tonight. Okay, that's fantastic. Thank you, because I really want to move forward with this project. The next thing, Neil's going to pass out an article. I mentioned to you guys that we were, myself and our design consultant for our I&I project were interviewed, it's been a couple months ago, by I&I magazine that everybody's heard of, right?
Yeah.
Well, we ended up on the cover of the magazine with a wonderful action shot of Neil's crew members out there, Ethan Sterling is on the cover of I&I magazine with a nice little 5-page spread
There's
inside
Scott
the magazine.
Williams on the page
Scott
back. There's
Williams.
Sue. Hey, I see Sue.
Yeah.
I see Scott.
So I was very surprised and kind of excited to see that on the cover. I didn't have any idea, just thought it was going to be a little blurb inside the magazine. So kind of nice little publicity for us.
Good work.
It is just
Good work.
a trade magazine out to a very targeted audience. But, again, just something else to get a little bit of the hard work that has been done over the last few years out in some positive light. And related to that, tomorrow I'm going to be co-presenting a little session at a trenchless symposium in Portland on a lot on the lateral program and also the Godfrey Park storm project that we just completed. So there's been a lot of interest in the work that we've done. And the
Very
projects
cool
that
in the I&I world, right here.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah. Anyway, that's all I had to report tonight.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks, Sue. Neil?
I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that the restrooms are done down at Gray Cliff Park, and they are open. They are on a timer where they turn off and on at certain times. So during the dark hours, they're not on working. And the only other project I just wanted to mention the Veterans Memorial thing. You haven't seen anything going on over there. We're waiting for some metal issues that are being worked out, that we got some wrong metal when they ordered some of that, so that's kind of where the hold up of that project is.
And then the other part of the project is waiting on the veterans, right? And I understand you guys might have approved a chunk of change to...
Yeah, we were working on the budget.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. Okay.
That's why the building isn't complete yet. So that's all I got.
All right. Margaret.
If you had happened by the library yesterday afternoon, you would have seen a middle schooler at every public computer under the guidance of an instructor from the St. Helens High School Career and Technical Education Department. I know you know that Gretchen's been having Make It programs for elementary school children, but this is the first time we had, I should say the second time ever, that we've had this same sort of program for middle schoolers. And this partnership with the school district allows them to showcase some of the capabilities of the programs at the high school, showcase those to middle schoolers so that as they make their course selections for their incoming high school choices, they can consider this particular program. And they were using our public computers that were linked up to a vinyl cutter and a program that makes the models to drive the 3D printers. And so they created those programs yesterday, and then next week they'll finish up those projects. So it's a nice collaboration. It works well for the high school to be able to reach out to prospective students, and it gives us a good way to partner with the high school and also to make another use of those public computers that we have that are so well equipped with the latest software and business class internet speeds. The other thing I wanted to mention was that earlier this month we had an art class where people took an old book and transformed it into a journal, a more artistic sort of work. And that was kind of a lead-in to what will be our 4th annual Altered Book Show in February. And this is when people take an old book and transform it into anything from I've seen people make a ballerina costume and ballet shoes out of an old book pages. We've seen all kinds of entries. And so we're calling for submissions right now. And from January 26th through the 30th, we'll be accepting 2- and 3-dimensional artwork made from books. And it will be on display in the lobby of the Columbia Center during the month of February. And the last thing I was going to mention is our St. Helens Book Club meets the last day of January at 7 o'clock. And the theme for the book that you should select is humor. We don't dictate the title. We just suggest a theme and ask people to read a book that relates to the theme, and then it provides an opportunity for people to share what they read and give good reading ideas to other people. And we always have great snacks. So that's January 31st at 7 in the library. And that's all I have.
Thanks, Mark. Matt.
Just a couple quick things to update the council that at the next February meeting, that's when you'll receive the audit report back. So we're just finishing up some final details from that, but that will be on the docket for the February meeting. And then just wanted to give you all a quick update on the recreation center that's going on. We had the plumbers that are finishing up the bathroom right now. They're about 2 to 3 weeks ahead of schedule from some hard work and late nights, but they should be ready and all complete for a final inspection next week and close up the project. They've also been doing some additional work as far as putting up some additional walls, and actually I had to have them install the flooring as well. I heard that the school district was not able to meet our timeline deadlines, so I went ahead and with John's approval moved forward on getting the floors installed so that we could still open in February as planned. So the floors are almost all done. Just waiting on a couple boxes from Home Depot to come into delivery. And that will be all done and still on schedule for the first part of February to be open for the public.
Nice. Good progress.
You want to talk about our new sign too?
Oh, yeah. So the recreation center sign is almost ready to be put up. The industrial sign has been delivered. It is sitting in the gym of the recreation center, just to kind of waiting some final things to be installed over on the Cascade sign. And John can share with you the picture email of what I originally proposed when we were doing the sign for the business signs underneath the industrial sign. And what direction the council wants to go on that. He can show you the picture, as well as I think Keith has the email as well, because I emailed it to him because we just happened to be talking about it. So what you envision as a council and kind of directive, I assume working with John to figure out what you want as far as business signs underneath. The industrial sign is 12 feet long, so it's a pretty long sign. So I envisioned 48 inches, which is basically 3 business signs underneath as a row. And then you can add more underneath as you grow more businesses that come into the industrial park. But John and Keith have that picture to share with you and get your thoughts on and any direction that you would like to do on moving forward with those signs. So once you give John some directive, he can let me know what that is, and we can get those ordered and have those signs put up as well.
It's 12 feet across.
It is 144 inches.
Okay.
It's a lot bigger when I walked up to it than I
Yeah.
when driving by.
It is. So are you going to have a metal frame built with a...
We're using the existing poles that are there.
They're only 4x8 though, aren't they? Are they 12?
They're steel.
They're 12 foot?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. If you get a chance, walk up to it, and
it
it's
like
a different perspective
It
than
looks like a
driving
sheet
by.
of plywood, so I guess it is. If it's 12 feet, it's 12 feet.
Yeah.
It just looks like a sheet of plywood to me.
Yep.
Okay, good.
Plus, we have to conform to city codes also.
Yes.
That's all I have.
All right. Kathy.
The next City County Quarterly meeting dinner is tentatively scheduled for March 19th.
Uh-huh.
So get that tentatively put on your calendar. The City Employee Recognition Banquet is February 1st, And so I need to hear from you if you're going to be able to make it.
Myself and my wife.
All right.
Okay.
Great. That's all I had.
Are you familiar with what? Are you already going, Topaz?
Don't know a thing about it yet.
Okay. So,
It was in the envelope that, or in the folder that I gave you in that box.
so we're doing our banquet dinner. down at
It's
the Elks.
countywide.
No, not the county. The
Oh,
city.
different. Sorry,
the
my
city.
The employee recognition.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm coming up to speed. Haven't gotten there yet. Is the box is not that thick.
All right. So the deadline's this Friday. So you need to let her know by Friday if you want to go. It's down at the Elks Lodge. It's a nice little Rotary.
No. It's at the new rec center.
It is. We having it catered.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why I'm working late nights to get it ready.
The goal.
All right. So it's at the rec center.
Yeah. I'll tell you. I'll give you a card
Okay.
after this.
Okay.
That's it.
All right. And then John.
21st.
So I was just, as Sue was passing this in, I Inflow and Infiltration cover magazine article out, it kind of reminded me back to, probably close to 20 years ago. I went to a conference. Our city was having some of those kinds of issues in implementing a program, and I went to a conference on this, and I was astounded how many people are there. It was an ocean of people that were in this industry. So this isn't insignificant. There's a whole culture out there that does this kind of work and is interested in it, and it's valued. And also, in that same vein, I wanted to note that our putting St. Helens on the map, and out there is this Patel Brownfields Conference. It's an annual international conference. It's in I think I've talked about it before. It's in New Orleans this year, and we're having a program in that conference, and it's really impressive. There's thousands of people that come to this kinds of things, and we're being highlighted for our potential, our potential lagoon repurposing project, and it's really a concept at this point that needs to be perfected through the additional investigation work that we're going to be doing, but nonetheless, the concept is that powerful that it warrants. It's been accepted as a session there. We had our council interviews today for goals. We're going to talk more about that next on the 23rd. In a retreat, the location, unless you want it somewhere different, would be the upstairs conference room. We can go somewhere else if you like. I thought there would be 4 to 8 so that there would be food involved.
What about the Oberdorfer? Is it all? It's got a new roof. Is it cleaned up inside? It's not the Oberdorfer. That's what it's called, the Oberdorfer building.
There's no heat. There's no heat in there either.
We're bring a jacket.
Well, let's get some portable heaters. We got a new roof on that thing.
We did have a council retreat there in the past, and it was semi-miserable. It was done dirty and cold, and
It had reclaimed chairs.
and had all these junk chairs, and
Well,
They're still there, by the way. Most of them.
my whole reason for that is because that's really what's on my mind as far as one of the goals that that industrial property is in our urban renewal, and we need to feed our urban renewal, and we need jobs, and we need the whole. That should be it's my priority. So that's my reasoning for having it there.
I serve at your pleasure.
What about a couple portable heaters? Can't we get heaters in there the day before, get it warmed up?
The water's been turned off. I'm not sure where
Well,
everything's even at.
We had a new roof put on it.
We
We've
did
been
have a
dumping
new
money.
roof put on it.
We're talking about
I've
painting it.
talked
right?
about this before and tried to get you guys.
We're talking about painting it.
You can have a meeting
It's
at the
the
rec
newest
center.
building over there.
The rec center is.
Rec center,
would
it's
be
on
way-
the Boise property.
Yeah, let's do that.
At least the problem is that the plugins weren't even reliably working. Susan and I spent considerable time with Lisa trying to get hot water and coffee. And if you can't,
At the rec center?
no, at that building
Oh,
you're talking
yeah.
about. And that's why. It's like we don't want to waste hours of time just trying to make life support there in that space.
I mean, that's a pretty significant sized building, if I recall. There's revenue positive right there if somebody wanted to
The rec
Yeah.
center works though.
Yeah, for our
We
retreat.
got to
but
spend
I'm
some
just
money
thinking,
on it first.
Not a whole lot more. Got to paint it. What?
Whole new heating system.
Okay, ductless. They hook right
I
up the
mean,
wall.
it's there. It just needs new heat pumps. 2 new heat pumps.
Okay, well, even ductless. It's not that big a place.
Anyways, next.
We're in the ditch.
Sorry, John.
So, just for planning purposes, we could do it upstairs. We can do it. You want to do it at the rec center? We can.
Rec center.
This is the 23rd next week, so it's not going to be ready yet. I don't think. But if you don't mind us.
23rd, you will not have tables.
We'll not have tables.
Yeah.
We can still a table or two.
Is Tana in town? Is
For the
B&B
bathrooms, yeah.
available again?
I didn't check into that.
The bathroom should be available by the 23rd.
I mean, it wouldn't take much to put 2 tables in the gym.
Let's find out about the B&B and see if it's available.
Let's just have it over at the library. Is that room available?
I'd have to look it up, yes. But I could find out for you. It'll
Just
take me a
checking.
minute.
That's a
to get
perfect
in.
size room for a little tiny retreat.
Yeah,
Retreat.
It
Yeah.
works out. Works well.
Yep.
What time on the 23rd?
It'd be well.
It's 4
It's all day.
Four
Most
o'clock.
of the day. Oh, it's the evening one. I'm
We're
sorry.
doing well. No, we're doing both in the evenings. It's a 4-hour block for both of them, 4 to 8. So
Okay.
just to try to get capture the most people we can. So
Well, if there's somebody that can lock up, set the alarm,
I'm sure we're capable.
yeah, I'm sure I can train
Yep.
someone.
Yep.
well, Margaret's looking that up. Maybe we could move on to the other. I'm hitting you with a number of meetings right here. There's a January 23rd meeting. There's a January 30th meeting. All of these Wednesdays that to talk about tourism and events, having a kind of a themed retreat to talk about
Yep.
your expectations for those programs, events and activities.
No, we definitely can't procrastinate that. We have to get that figured out.
In the same time frame, 4 to 8. Location is I'm indifferent about, but it could be here, there, whatever. I did get some dockside menus if we wanted to have food and have food brought in.
Yep.
Pass those out, people's names on them.
Yep.
For both meetings, actually, unless we want to do different food or pizzas or something. But. And then I sent a reminder out on the February 13th is a retreat more specific to the Lagoon Project.
That's in Portland.
That one's in Portland, yes.
When's that?
The 13th, February 13th.
February 13th, yeah.
So we're going to be lots of retreats.
Yeah, there's a lot happening right now.
Yep.
And then in addition to the regular
meetings
and things we have going on. So.
Yep.
Could you go over those dates again?
We got
and
3
times?
retreats. So the one we have to decide on is the tourism discussion, and he mentioned the date of 30th and what? 23rd? No. The 30th though.
23rd is goals. The 30th is it could be
Tourism.
it could be a date other than the 30th if you choose, but right now it seemed like 30th was working for most people, and that's the tourism events and activities.
So Wednesday.
And February 13th I think is a Tuesday. So
Okay.
is that right? Well, no, it looks like it's a Wednesday too. So they're all Wednesdays.
So why don't we just play? So it'd be the next 3 this Wednesday, next Wednesday, and the Wednesday after for the.
There's a meeting. Well, there's a meeting Wednesday, and then there's another Wednesday. So your Wednesdays are pretty full for the next month. So.
Yes. That's what I was saying. But so 23rd and the 30th are both a Wednesday,
Correct.
and then we have the following Wednesdays our
Regular
council.
meeting.
Yep.
And
So
one after that is
Okay.
in Portland.
yep, which is
When's the tourism? What time?
The thought was it'd be that same 4 to 8 slot.
Okay.
Wednesday. I like it. It's easy enough.
And it's evening, so food usually works for people.
Yep. Don't get me hangry.
If Dockside's all right, if you want Sunshine Pizza or you want whatever. There's some names and yips.
I stole 2.
On the 23rd, the auditorium is in use.
I think
It
they're
is?
meeting in the Armstrong room.
It's in use starting at 5:30.
The little room is?
Mm-hmm.
And what date was that one?
The 23rd?
Okay, what about the 30th?
Yeah, this past.
Oh.
Okay, so it looks like that date is taken back upstairs, or
Yeah, upstairs, I guess.
Anna's, or
30th is our, which retreat? The
23rd, we don't have a room. Oh.
23rd.
23rd is goals.
Wherever you guys decide.
If we had a new
The-
police station, we'd have a nice, I know.
You have it here, but it was up down here. You have to go up the big stairs.
We could.
That's entirely possible.
Kind of like getting out of here
Yeah.
or escaping.
We could check the Soil and Water Conservation District too. That's a nice
Yes,
spot over there.
that works good too.
So the 30th, maybe?
The Armstrong room is available on the 30th,
Can you schedule a set for that date, please?
4 to 8.
Yep.
Okay.
Other than that, I think we're good there. We'll look at soil and water conservation as number one, and then upstairs as a back.
Fallback. Yeah.
Fallback.
Sounds good.
Gone through and looked at the council rules that have been. I mean, right now it says we meet at, I think, 7:30 on the night meetings, and it's really old. It hasn't been updated for a long time. So I've gone through and done a strike through underline format, and I'll send that out to you to look at, and maybe have that in advance for one of the retreats. That's probably good. So.
Okay. All right. So, council reports. Councilor Locke.
So I'm going to have a pass out here for you guys. I'll start doing this at next several meetings, have a new map each meeting to talk about. This is a map of what Cascades has leased from us. I haven't measured this yet, but I did do an update on what they're actually using. I believe this is somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 acres, maybe something like that. I did an update on what they're actually using, and I've developed a map of that I'll bring next meeting.
I'm kind of out here past the parking lot. Like there's little red
Lips.
things, and yeah, what are all these?
If it isn't dark red, super dark red, then I'm not sure. Well, that's the scales. The entrance and the scales is that long one in the road there.
Oh, okay.
So it's the guard shack and the
Okay.
scales.
Yep.
And then I think even that on further is just where I don't know why I assume that's where the gas line comes in and some electrical
Yeah, it is the gas.
components.
A big old meter right there.
So,
Yep.
Anyway, I kind of recalculated what they're actually using, and it's actually just a hair over 50 acres is what they're actually using.
Were you able to Google map it to
Yeah,
figure it out?
and I've drawn it out. Yeah, so I'll start bringing those at each meeting and let you guys get the whole big picture of what's going on out there and kind of whatnot, so you understand it a little bit more.
Well, a lot of people don't understand what's going on down there.
I know. That's why I'm starting to bring this
yes.
stuff and telling you about it. Exactly.
Well, we're aware. We as a council are aware of it.
Not all of you. And we
Well,
have some
I'm
new
aware
people.
there is $4.5 to $6 million worth of pulp or bad paper sitting around that mill at value, even reject value.
That's another topic.
That's not being taxed.
That's another map.
Not being taxed.
Yeah. But anyway, so just so you know, and these are buildings only.
This is
No
your files and stuff.
alleyways, no roads, no nothing. Buildings only is what's in their lease.
Well, it's not a bad thing. It falls in our urban renewal. So let's figure
So-
something out.
This is for your guys' information, just so you know. And I'll keep bringing other maps that will explain what more about the whole overall thing.
ground between buildings. They only rent the buildings.
Yep.
They only rent ground. They don't. I mean, they only rent buildings. They don't rent the ground between buildings.
As of right now, yes.
That's
There-
partially correct.
There's some language in there that gives them access to some of the roads, yes, and some of the acreage,
But there's no exclusive use of the ground
no.
or of the roads.
So there.
How about security? Can I drive in and park between the two buildings and set my camp up?
Not without getting in trouble from them.
Well, if that's the case, then they should be paying me for it.
And we'll talk about that.
This is just cleaning up some of the stuff.
Yeah, this is all for discussion. So
Yeah, the lease is built off of exclusive use, shared use, and there's an overlying easement
Yep.
that's loosely defined.
this map is kind of terrible. I've cleaned this map up and I'll print it out so it looks better and whatnot. But my maps are all on Google Earth, so you can actually see what's there, physically what's there and whatnot. So
Yeah, it should be noted that this is something we inherited. It's not something we
Right.
had we created. So
yeah, this was all set up by Boise Cascade when they wrote the lease. So we didn't create this. We just inherited it. So anyway, a lot of stuff going on. ACSP, they're trying to get all their temporary permits going. They have them for two of the small outbuildings, and they actually harvested their first crop a week ago, and they're in the process of making it retailable now and whatnot. So they're actually moving along, and that's my report. So, Jenny, go ahead.
Oh, the mayor's not there.
Ginny, go ahead.
I didn't realize Rick wasn't sitting there. The Planning Commission, I know that I have appointments for tonight, but I just wanted to preface this. We did go out for 2 positions on the Planning Commission. We had 1 applicant, and the 2 ladies that are currently serving are happy to go on serving, and the applicant that interviewed for them was not better or even equal to the task. So the Planning Commission's recommendation, and I concur, is that we continue and reappoint Audrey and Sheila to serve another term. They had some conversation about the importance of experience in the Planning Commission and the importance of how long it takes you to get up to speed as a planning commissioner. And their thought process is like, if somebody's not working out on a commission, that the council liaison should be able to talk to this body and say it's not working out and move somebody along, rather than the arbitrary just filling a seat to fill a seat. So I'm just putting that out there. They made the motion to reappoint Audrey and Sheila. I concur with that, as does staff. At this time, they ran the ad twice or 3 times. We started looking for people in October and only got 1 applicant on the very last day in December to interview. And we interviewed the individual, and they didn't bring a lot of things to the table that weren't, you have to look at it. It's like, do you just switch out a person just to say you switched them out, or because it's better for the team? And both of those ladies bring so much experience, so much knowledge to the team that it didn't warrant to switch out at this time. But if the council, I don't feel that it's necessary at this time, but going forward, if we really want to change up the rules, maybe there's a different rule for planning, because it takes so long to get up to speed as a planning commissioner. Realistically, Catherine, some of the other new planning commissioners, Julie, they're like, I'm a year into it and I'm just now getting it. And so to constantly be refreshing it is not the best service of our community. So I just didn't think that I didn't feel comfortable making the switch at this
Well, do you have a suggestion? Do you happen to have a suggestion for
there
what
were-
the standard could be?
The 2 suggestions they suggested, even if they didn't like the ambiguity of you serve 2 terms and then we'll put it out, and if somebody applies that's good, we'll take them. They didn't like that feeling of sitting there waiting for somebody to apply and going, well, I hope nobody does because I still want to serve. Whereas if they knew that 3 terms is the limit, my 3rd term's almost up, I'm going to go find somebody new to take my place. So they'd rather have a term maximum or to have it until the council deems that their services is no longer required. They didn't like that where they have to vote out their own. They don't like that feeling, and they'd prefer not to do that. And I understood some of these people have worked on the planning commission in excess of 10 years. Those are friends, and it's hard to tell your friends goodbye.
Certainly don't want to put you in a position or a counselor in a position to arbitrarily make a move and say, oh, well, I think you should go now.
Right.
Now that's the worst case scenario of all, as
Right.
far as I'm concerned.
Right.
And so somehow we got to have a standard, and somehow you got to build in some kind of flexibility with that standard.
Right. I had a conversation when we had no applicants with John and with Kathy, and we went out and ran the application again and did get one person on the last day. But that person came in and interviewed, and it just wasn't a significant, you just have to weigh it as these people are quasi-judicial land use people. And you have to look at Audrey and Sheila that have been amazing in their service and are willing to go on doing so, and this other person that is really didn't present as fully vested in doing the task. And it's like we just replaced the chair 2 years ago or a year ago, and Julie came in and she was amazing, and she's been awesome. So I think that the council liaison ultimately falls on, like, as council president, it's up to me to make that decision and bring it back to you. But their recommendation is to continue with the ladies, and if we want them to have this be their last term, then I don't know if there's language that allows us to do that without it being a rule.
Are they both on the same term right now?
Yes. They just are, this will be their 4th term,
And the terms last
4 years.
4 years.
So, and we have Greg coming up in 2 years.
Okay.
So those are our long
Greg
term.
would be a 3-year or a 3-term.
Yeah, Greg is finishing his 3rd.
So
He'll be coming up for a 4th term. So that's the question that we have to ask ourselves. For right now, I feel comfortable making the recommendation and concurring with the Planning Commission to go on with Audrey and Sheila because the applicant wasn't.
Well, yeah. So somewhere in there, you've got to declare the applicant incompetent, and then that gives you a better rationale of keeping those 2 on the planning commission.
Not suitable at this time.
And so, yeah, if that's a feeling that they're incapable of doing that through the interview process, then, that makes sense to me. But that has to be backed up and documented, I would think.
I'm kind of at odds with that whole. I mean, I get where they're in a predicament, and the planning commission is, because you gotta make a decision, even if between Sheila or Audrey. 2, even if you took this other
Right.
person, then you have that predicament.
Right.
But the way our mission statement reads is, if somebody's in line and you've served 2 terms, somebody's got to go.
A suitable person.
Is that the way it reads?
It doesn't say just a warm body.
Is that the way it reads?
I think so.
And so my whole thing with that is where I was going to go with that is you don't know only because you don't know. And the only way you're going to learn is to sit down right here in the chair and learn. So you don't really deem a person incompetent until you actually have had some history with them.
I interviewed with the individual.
Okay.
So
if you're
I
willing
interviewed.
if you're
I
willing to back
interviewed.
it up.
I interviewed the individual,
Okay.
was there the entire time, and I've served with these ladies for 6 years.
Yep.
So their experience stands for their experience.
I'm just stating for the record what I know to be how we've dealt with this in the past. And
That's why we developed the rules we have also.
That's a tough place to be if you feel that person who interviewed is not, yeah.
Well, I mean, I've gone through this process numerous times since I've been on the planning commission. And each time when there was an appropriate qualified applicant, we did make the switch. But, given an appropriate qualified applicant did not present, the person in the term is to be allowed to continue, has been our policy in practice.
Now, was there any discussion of those two individuals possibly doing a half term, or was it a full 4-year term?
They didn't even go into that.
Yeah.
Kathy, is that it that you got up there right now? So how does it read?
Yeah, the last part of number 9, last half of number 9 kind of talks about service individual and
The last part of 8, the number of applicants interviewed by the interview committee is discretion. Now we're going to make sure these people who've got to make the decision feel this person is good, bad, or indifferent.
Yep.
That's it. If they make the decision, end of story. We don't need any testing, or they've got to be here 97 years before we find they're bad. It's at the discretion of that committee. If the committee is one person, it's the discretion of that one person. That's it.
Well, what I'm guessing, I know that somewhere in there, and I'm not gonna sit here and try to define it, but I know there are also states somewhere in there that about at 2 terms, if there's an applicant that applies, you have to give up your seat, because that just happened to the chair.
Right, no, it was, I did that.
Yeah.
I did the heavy lifting to do that, and went against their own recommendation to do that. It is a suitable applicant, not just any applicant.
Okay. Right.
That would make sense. I would hope that we.
As long as it reads in there and you
we'd want
checked
the
it and we're
best
okay,
person for the job.
I'm okay. I get it.
We may want to relook, because I don't know how much thought we gave to the planning commission when we developed these rules, because the planning commission is different than the rest of our commission.
It is a lot different.
Yeah.
To know code and just.
May put that somewhere on our to-do list somewhere.
Yep.
Is that on your list?
We could make it. Yeah, I mean, you're talking about term limits, and
I mean, and at least as a footnote to be I didn't want to wait until tonight when she says appointments to not have this conversation.
Yes.
To have more conversation around this, what the justification was. I mean, all of us were torn.
Well, looking at that, it looks like we're okay. So
Yeah, all 4 of us were torn with, if we have to just take a warm body, then how do you throw away a good person for a person we don't believe to be even equal to the task?
And I remember us talking about this when we drafted all this up. So, yeah.
So the other things I had, less pressure. Lisa came to the youth council meeting and presented the skate park project, and it was the most energetic I've ever seen the group. They voted by unanimous resolution to help her in any way possible to facilitate the skate park improvements.
Good.
And of note, there was no active skaters in the group, but they all felt it was important for their community as youth. So I thought that was pretty, I mean, this is a group that doesn't do much. It's a whole group of introverts. So for them to want to do stuff was a big deal. The other thing is I asked them their feeling about council goals and what they thought that we should work on. And they talked about sidewalks, but they talked about lighting. They talked about they hope that when sidewalks come to the high school that an improved crossing happens. The crossing there between the high school and Safeway is treacherous at best. And they said they hope that we would take time to make sure that happens. Just youth council input on council goals. So it's not do it now. It's just their feedback.
Definitely going to happen.
It's just their feedback. So, and the other thing that was interesting in talking about art, Margaret talked about art at the library, and I guess the school has an art case that they pull out talented artists at the school, and the youth council's input was that's a very select number. There are so many artists that never get offerings there, and I wondered, and I said, well, do you think it would be valuable for the city to feature those artists or to open that door to the library as an art display? And there's like anything that would give these kids that don't necessarily show up on the radar in GPAs and in, track distances and gold medals and that kind of things, because there's other opportunities for achievement. So those are the things, is they just feel like there's kids getting left behind, and any way that we can keep the kids safe and make sure we're lifting up all the talents, whatever those talents may be, because they said there's a lot of gifted kids in the school, and not all of them get appreciated.
Is there not a committee that picks that art over there, Margaret? Used to be, I know.
Once upon a time, there was the gallery group that was an extension of the Columbia Learning Center. That group no longer exists, but we have the Columbia Arts Guild, and they meet at the Columbia Center every week, and then they have their monthly board meetings there as well. And they did the fundraising for that brand new display case, and so they have. We work together to decide what will go in there every month, and it's predominantly art. Sometimes there was like that history. The Museum Association had that antique toy exhibit in December, but it's mostly something that is related to a library program or the Art Guild. I think they would love to see a student art show.
Is Joan still part of that group?
Yes, she's their new vice president.
All right, super. I know Joan, so I can reach out to her and see.
And also, I think in the past, there used to be a school district art show in the gallery, and they still have these ways to mount art. I mean, it's like a grid system that accordions and stands up, and we used that when Terry had the children's police department Christmas card art.
Oh, super.
So it's all within the realm of the kinds of things they want to support. I think it could be made into something more than where you had like maybe an evening where you introduced the show. That's pretty typical in art museums, to have a preview night or whatever. And maybe there could be some light refreshments and a little bit of music, and people could come see the art on display and make a big deal out of it.
Super. And then the only other thing I had, I just wanted to thank Councilor Topaz for his information that he dropped off for all of us to look at in our boxes, which was about the effects of cannabis use for pregnant moms and for kids. And I just want to reiterate that part of the funding and the Community Impact Fund that we are collecting is for prevention and education, and to reach out. And we've done some of the prevention, but we still have to pick up on that education piece, because we're collecting money now to do that and to inform our community about the effects of this legal product that necessarily is not the best choice. So I just wanted to thank you for passing out that information. That's all I had.
Okay. Councilor Topaz.
Last council meeting, we was shown a picture of the sign, and they said that they had not designed it yet, or I should say they had not ordered it yet. So I had somebody look at our present sign and had a professional take a look at it. This professional said anytime you build a sign, you ought to find out what the essence of the city was. And asking a number of people, they described our city as historic, quaint, and riverside. And so this ought to embody the thoughts and the feelings in our signs. Next one, please. These are the signs that were, or the top one was the one that was presented. And the professional pointed out that the top lettering, is hard to read at a distance, especially if you're going by. And preferred lettering was the second two, the bottom two. It's also a commercial on the computer, so you don't have to have a hard time rebuilding. Next sign, please. Now, the difference in these signs is rather, we'll say, technical and almost indistinguishable. You'll see the part that's the City of St. Helens, and then underneath that is the industrial business sign. You'll notice that the banner is straight, where before that the banner was curved. Your eye plays tricks on you. This becomes more readable than the other sign, just because of that funny curve. Now, the next thing is what kind of feeling, how do we match up to, like, say, Astoria or Ocean City or somebody for a big sign? Last sign, please. This is St. Helens. We're a quaint, historic operation. And if you don't like the color, the last sign, because people just don't like the color. So my favorite color is some other color. Really, we went through a lot of hoops to get our signs. And one of the comments that this professional made was, I bet you your consultant presented you with 4 or 5 signs and had everybody in the community say which signs they liked, and this was the most liked sign over here. He says, unfortunately, none of these people are really qualified to choose the sign. Not because they don't know the sign, but the sign isn't for people here in St. Helens. The sign is for people coming into St. Helens who know nothing about it. So when our signage comes along, we must be a little careful on how we choose our signs from both a technical point of what your eye can actually see versus what we like. And remember, the people who are going to read our signs, as far as needing them, are outsiders. So, as I say, I have some problems with that big sign that we bought, and I was under the understanding that the decision to buy it had not been made yet. So that's me. Thank you.
If I can just quickly comment in reply to Mr. Topaz, with respect to the work that you've done here with the professional, the sign that was approved by consensus by the City Council a few weeks ago for the industrial park sign was built from our wayfinding and branding plan, which was done by a consulting company that did do outreach and did do designs for all of the signs that will eventually be across the City of St. Helens. So we did reach out for those type of designs and receive feedback from the community, and that's what the industrial sign was built based on. The text, the actual colors, the banner was specifically directly out of the wayfinding plan.
Yeah. I was at some of those meetings, and the level of technical ability I'll discuss with you at some other time. The real mistake was they threw out a number of pictures or signs and wanted a group of really non-professionals to say what they liked. And now I'm talking about technical ability to read this. I would have much preferred to have this consulting group saying, these 2 signs are the best. Actually, this sign is the best and one we recommend. As compared to making everybody feel happy but making a mishmash. And just in lettering, shape, and size, and a few minute, if you would, technical things make it much, much more readable. That's where my problem is. And the last meeting we had, I didn't remember that the council said that's what we were going to get. We were going to decide yet to come. So I'm a little bit off on that. I'm not really happy with everybody with a reel of red dots going up to something on the wall and saying, this is what we like. I mean, it makes the community feel happy, but a lot of times our business is not making the community feel happy. Well, politically, that's incredibly important. It's how do we get the message to people outside the community? It's a very touchy subject that we're trying to impress people from outside our community to come here, not make the people who are here happy. Hopefully we can do both.
Well, I would agree with you, Steve, but I also agree. We did do a bunch of public outreach, and we had consultants, and spent a number of dollars in grant money to do the wayfinding. But I agree that we want people from outside our area to see the signage too. There's no doubt about it. I didn't go sit in on those meetings because I had nothing else better to do. It's really kind of, personally, I kind of take it personal because I sat in on those meetings too, and you did too. And we had public input. We had our voices there. And that was before I was mayor. So,
one of the things that I was there, I can't say that I had a whole lot of input as far as level. One of the things I've been involved with is technical artists. And one of the things I've been impressed with, how little I know and how much technical artists tell me what my eye actually sees versus what I think I see. And that's kind of, I'm more discussing the technical goodness of the sign rather than the emotional goodness. The emotional goodness politically is absolutely necessary. And that's where I think, if we want to go forward, we got to really walk that narrow line to do it. And that's difficult. The signs aren't bad, but we've got this one notch up. And I'm definitely talking the technical requirements of the sign. And now for the lettering, which is going to go underneath this, that becomes important. If we follow the lettering that's presently on there, we've got a visual thing. We're going to have a lot of words to read with 6 or 7 companies underneath there. That's where this technical lettering becomes important. So this isn't done with this thing right now. I mean, it's a continuing process. And that's what we've got to be careful of. Remember, we're trying to be an upscale town for the future.
You going to comment? It looked like you were getting ready to.
I could.
Okay.
I would just note that this is an existing industrial sign at the mill there, and the idea was to follow our branding and wayfinding plan that we spent, engaged with national professional consultants, and had a community effort. And there was designs and colors, and there's a certain amount of element of killing the creative spirit by having a committee to dilute. They say the worst thing you can do in public art is have too big of a committee, and you end up with this beige box kind of thing where it's just you accommodated everybody's best interest or everybody's feelings, and everybody's happy. But this is intended to fit in with the big picture. So I guess that's my only point. So.
Yep.
There we go.
Okay. Council President Morton.
Yeah, I have something along the lines of our discussion today. One is boards and commissions. I kind of think we're missing the boat on maybe advertising for our boards and commissions. And the reason I'm saying that is that we had a person on our Parks Commission say, because the city is having such a hard time filling the commissions. And I'm going, I don't really know. Well, okay, let's just say that that's a true statement. Are we having a hard time? I'm not quite certain. But wouldn't it be interesting if we posted to our public when some seat will be opening up? And that way, that doesn't mean that they have to be at the right place at the right time to know that seat is opening up. So that if we post that and run it for a year or run it in through Crystal, that these seats will be opening up at such and such time, that people can see it and make plans for 6 months from now or 3 months from now. And that would be possibly, if she could do something like that and keep that running in every bit of communication that we have. So I see that as a fix to help our community instead of just advertising that something has just opened or has been open, and I understand the Planning Commission that's been going for some time. I just think there should be more of that, and then that way people will say, "Oh, wow, I see a place on the Arts and Cultural Commission that I could fit in. It looks like I could do that next year," and they can make plans to do that. Because people have to make plans to make it to meetings, and I just think that some better communication throughout our entire community would help on that.
Doug, sorry. We can talk about that. Let's talk about that sometime because
Okay.
it's really difficult because if we do a display ad, it costs hundreds of dollars. If we do press releases, we would be doing a press release every paper, and they're really useless because they're not really. I mean, it would be just a repetitive thing. So let's try to find a creative way to do that.
That'd be great.
Okay.
I think that would help because then people wouldn't have to be at the exact time and
Yeah.
place, and they could make plans for next year or
And we
maybe even 2 years, as long as there's when the vacancies open up. I just
Well,
think that's important.
I wondered about, I had, just not to interrupt Doug's report, but I had thought about this a while ago because people had asked about different commissions, and I thought to invite volunteers to sign up for other, because the application is the same no matter what one you want to be on. So maybe when it's volunteer appreciation time, maybe we should put out the word that people can get on that list and go in your file, so when an opening comes up, there's applications there.
Yeah.
And we could say, you were interested in this, the position's open.
Yeah.
So then we kind of have a volunteer drive and kind of build that resource. So then when the Arts Commission does a project, people are interested. They might not be an opening on the commission right now, but they'd love to have more at their event or love to have more at their team.
Yeah.
When the Bikes and Pets did the helmets, they'd love to have more people. People want to be part of that joy in the community and invite more people to participate that just want to do an event and maybe never want to come to a meeting, just want to be part of the process. But maybe a volunteer, because you guys always do, we always celebrate our volunteers. So maybe we could do a volunteer recruitment and people could sign up, check any box they're interested in, and just build a file and maybe just save them for a year or decide how long you're going to do it before you purge them. And then when something comes up, you can let them know. I just thought rather than lots of ads and stuff, because that way we could do one time as opposed to all over the time and all the different committees.
So thinking back, when we first started 13 Nights, one of the nights out here, in our booth, we had a list like that, and we said, "Are you interested in being a volunteer for something?" And so we took their name and phone number and email address, and so then we had that list for several years that we pulled from.
Yeah, good point.
I just thought something in a happy way to recruit people
Yeah, I think we
to
can.
participate.
Yeah, we'll see. I'd like to chat with you
Okay.
about that.
Okay.
Maybe put it on the
Yeah.
agenda for future. Interesting enough, my report today was going to be something about, it works with a goal. Goal number 1, continue to explore, develop, implement cost-saving efficiencies. Well, one of the things that I've been working with in terms of Great Cliffs Waterfront Park and Sand Island in the parks arena is an agreement with St. Helens Marina and the city. And that's taken quite some time, as John knows. It's kind of like we've gone through attorneys. And then today, as we were talking about the commission, and there might have been another time as well, wouldn't it be nice to have an onboard attorney in this room more than we have? And we don't have one, but we have an attorney in town who is offered to his services, and he's close by. He said at a moment's notice I could show up in your council chambers if you needed me. And so I thought, wow, that's kind of interesting. And so I'm just bringing that to the council, and I talked to John briefly about it. And I thought, maybe that's a good idea. It wouldn't have been bad today to have an attorney here to look at give us his kind of feelings of what he knows about in terms of legalities of what we've got with our planning commission and how we should go about it. It would be good to have someone to give us that counsel, that legal counsel. And how much would it cost? Well, I'm not quite certain, but I know that the guy is here and he wouldn't have to come from Portland. It'd be a walk up the street. So he approached me and I approached John, and now I'm making my report. So that's about as transparent as I can get.
Is he the same attorney for the port?
Yes.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah. So he does that with the port, only he does it with the port on a regular basis. So, okay, let's see, what else do I have? Oh, talking about parks, the Parks Commission brainstormed the ideas that they might have for Great Cliff Waterfront Park came up because of our entire waterfront development. Well, what about, are we going to leave Great Cliff out of that? And so I asked the Parks Commission to weigh in on any ideas that they had. And so it was a brainstorming kind of thing about amenities that could be there. So they're going to report back next time. And they were very excited that we're starting to look at that park and kind of think about it as an action area to develop. It's on the waterfront. So that's in the works. Along with that, we had a report from the skate park, and the Parks Commission was very open to that, and they want that. They looked at her as and the Arts and Cultural Commission, in a sense, as the point people to go to at this point. So to me, that was very encouraging. And again, she used the word partnership between arts and culture and parks, and I really like that. She continues to use that terminology.
Stand together.
Yes. Okay, that's it for now.
Okay. I would agree with you on the park down here. Councilor Morton and I had coffee the other morning, and we were talking about all the things, and we went down to that park, and we even taught the yard crew, the crew we hire from the Columbia County Jail, could even do a significant job just by hand tools with a lot of blackberries that are down there, and open up a lot more riverfront property down in that Great Cliff Park with just hand tools and a little bit of manpower. Probably 3-4 days worth of them doing it. Me, it'd only take a day. I'm just throwing that challenge out there to them.
Are you allergic to poison oak?
I am.
It might take you more than a day. That thing's
no, it wouldn't.
Covered with.
It wouldn't, but I would be paying the price later. Looking forward to this council retreat, getting some a new goal system going. I am looking forward to that. It'll just help us to put ownership to projects, and that's what I look forward to most. I want to get going on the industrial property. We've got the wetlands delineated. We've got a proposal for, if you know any local loggers, we have a little packet for that. If anybody knows anybody that would like it's a pretty significant job. I'd say big enough to keep a small crew going for a month or so on just logging. So somebody will be able to make some money off that, and of course we will too. But it's the next step in getting that property developed, and that's what we need to do. Speaking of the port, you brought up their attorney. They said we were supposed to start talking and we need to get back in touch with them.
Of course.
Yep, and we need to sit at the table with them and start talking about, you know, the rail system and future collaboration, because that's what we're all about, is collaborating. So that's kind of on my mind too. There's one other thing, and I can't remember what it was. That's really been heavily on my mind. It escaped me now. Leah, you sat here through the whole meeting. Did you want to come up and give a comment before I adjourn and go into executive session? Do you have anything you'd like to? Okay, yeah, yep. Just, I know you showed up a little bit late. Our visitor comments, there was none, so we went upstairs into executive session. So before I adjourn, we did recess our executive session, so we will be going back into executive session after I adjourn here. So.
Mr. Mayor,
yes.
I need to go back.
Yes, go ahead.
Speaking of our industrial, ACSP or Orgrotech, the company over there, they are in dire need of employees. If you know anybody that needs a job, a part-time job, they're looking for at least 10 to a dozen people. Could be part-time. Depending on, they will even hire disabled.
Vets,
whatnot.
Yep. That's what they want.
Depending on it, this is for trimming, so it kind of goes by your output. Their base wage for trimming is $15 an hour, but they decided to open it up to minimum wage if they have somebody that can't hit that. They have a minimum for that wage. So it could be anywhere from minimum wage to over $25 an hour, depending on your output. So if you know anybody who needs a job, and they do need to be qualified people that are trustworthy and whatnot, because there's cameras all over. So anyway, so you pass that word along. Thank you.
Okay. So.
Oh, and I guess I'm not sure what kind of number there is over there. So I guess for now, my number and emails on our website. So send me a note and I will pass it on as I get it. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, they need to get a number. They definitely need to do that if they want employees. So, okay, we're adjourned. We'll go right into executive session because we're running late.